Last night, the bats of the RoughRiders came alive as they pounded out 12 hits and 9 runs, picking up their second straight win. Can they do it again tonight? Find out next on Fox Sports Southwest.
Live from Dr. Pepper Ballpark in Frisco, Texas, Frisco RoughRiders Baseball.
Live from Dr. Pepper Ballpark in Frisco, Texas, it's the Frisco RoughRiders against the Springfield Cardinals. Good evening and hello, everybody. Nathan Barnett alongside Scott Lucas of the Newberg Report as the RoughRiders wrap up this 3-game series against the Springfield Cardinals with a chance for a series sweep. The RoughRiders have won each of the last 2 nights. The offense has really come alive, Scott, and it's been the newcomers that have really supercharged this offense.
It has been. The first one is 21-year-old Edward Pinto. He's a guy they just moved up 2 levels from low A Hickory. He's got a .311 lifetime batting average in the minors and is hitting .400 in Frisco. The second one is 32-year-old Cuban Alexis Bell, who hit his first home run last night. And then there's 2 older guys they brought in as reinforcements. One is catcher Carson Blair, who most recently played for Oakland, and Darren Mastroianni, who is a center fielder who's been leading off every game, and he's played the parts of 5 seasons with the Twins.
And that's the offense. Pitching-wise tonight, good pitchers matchup. Johnny Walter will go for the Cardinals. He took a no-hitter into the 9th inning his last time out, and the RoughRiders send youngster Ariel Jurado to the hill. He has been great, and he is awful young, a promising star in the Rangers system.
He is. He's 20 years old. He's the youngest guy in the Texas League. He was actually one of the youngest players in High A when he was there. He's got a hard fastball with a lot of sink on it, very good changeup, and he's working to develop a slider and a change.
The RoughRiders take on the Cardinals tonight with a chance for their first series sweep since the middle of May. RoughRiders Baseball on Fox Sports Southwest is brought to you by Train. It's hard to stop a train. By the Heart Hospital, Baylor Plano. And by J.C. Penney. RoughRiders taking on the Cardinals. Let's give you the starting lineups. Brought to you by Train. It's hard to stop a train. For the Cardinals, they'll start with Vaughn Bryan at right field. Paul DeYoung is at third. Luke Voigt is at first. Jonathan Rodriguez is out in left field. Blake Drake plays in center. Jesse Jenner is the catcher. Alan Staton is at second base, hitting 7th. Batting 8th, Johan Acevedo, the designated hitter, and Joey Hawkins is in the 9th spot. Hawkins is the shortstop. We'll have the RoughRiders defensively will have Darren Mastroianni in center field, Edward Pinto in left, and Alexis Bell in right. Around the infield from third to first, Luis Marte, usually a shortstop, playing third today. Alberto Triunfel is in his spot at short. Andy Ibanez is the Cuban star at second. Edwin Garcia mans first base. And the converted infielder, Isaiah Kiner-Falefa, behind the plate, catching Ariel Jurado, the starter for the RoughRiders tonight. We've got the first pitch coming up right after this. Just a light drizzle here at Dr. Pepper Ballpark as Ariel Jurado takes the hill, starting tonight for the RoughRiders here against the Springfield Cardinals. Jurado has been great for Frisco. He makes his 5th start here today, and he'll begin facing Vaughn Bryan. Bryan enters the day a switch hitter, .250 batting average with no homers and 2 runs batted in. Here comes Jurado's first of the day. That one's hit right back to him and into center field. Base hit right off the get-go. On the first pitch of the day, Bryan is aboard with a base hit. So Bryan, the switch-hitting right fielder. Nice smack here to open up the contest against Jurado. Looked like Jurado might have got a piece of that, but not enough. And the RoughRiders will have to work with a man on base here to open things up. Here's Paul DeYoung. DeYoung, a .244 batter, 20 homers and 67 runs batted in. First pitch, and he just misses.
Yeah, Jurado's the number 8 prospect in the Ranger system according to MLB.com. He's not in Baseball America's top 10, but that was before they traded 3 guys. I think he'd be near the bottom of that, the top 10 right now.
Looking for a ground ball here in the early going. Just missed to DeYoung, 2-0.
And that's a pitch you're going to see from Gerardo a lot. He's got a fastball that runs about 90 to 94. It's got a lot of sink. It's got a lot of run on it. It's his best pitch. Gets a lot of ground balls with it.
Tough assignment here early, behind 2-0 to a dangerous hitter. DeYoung tied for third in the league in home runs. Got a pick off here. Garcia to the shortstop, throwing foul, and he applies the tag on Brian. And the RoughRiders get their first out in an unconventional way here. Nice move from Gerardo.
Also a good pickoff move, which I wouldn't have thought to talk about, but there it is.
For the RoughRiders this year, that is pickoff number 23, and the first for Gerardo this year. 2-0 is swung on and missed.
But Gerardo's second best pitch is probably his changeup
on Gerardo.
He's also got a slider and a curve working on both of those pitches. They can kind of blur together at times. Differentiating those speeds and getting better placement on those are going to be key for him.
2-1 crack to right center. That one's down. Mastroianni cuts it off in front of the warning track. And into second base is DeYoung. That pickoff now a very pivotal play in this game, as it maybe saves the RoughRiders a run. DeYoung is into second base with his 22nd double. Just left that pitch up in the zone a little bit too much there.
A little bit. He will throw a four-seamer that won't necessarily sink as much, but the sinking fastball is going to be his bread and butter tonight.
Gerardo hit hard in his last outing, gave up a career-high 11 base hits. 5 runs all earned against the Tulsa Drillers. Luke Voigt's the batter now. The league's leading hitter takes strike one. Voigt batting .298 coming in. League hasn't had a leading hitter to end the season under 300 in almost 100 years. Voigt could be that first guy in a long while. Gerardo misses outside. Here are the numbers on Ariel Gerardo. 1 and 2, 327 earned run average. 15 strikeouts and 3 walks. Great command for Gerardo in 22 innings.
Yeah, he's a guy who has about 4 times as many strikeouts as walks, and earlier in his career it was actually even higher than that.
It's way outside to Voigt. That's a wild pitch. That's the 4th of the season for Gerardo since joining the RoughRiders, and a little inauspicious start for him here early on.
Well, he was out in the Mojave Desert in California before this. He might not be used to playing in damp conditions.
Still a little drizzly here at the ballpark, but really light enough at this point to get things started. So the RoughRiders wrap up this series against Springfield. Going for a sweep. They haven't swept an opponent since the middle of May when they beat Midland 4 in a row on the road. Infield draws in here. 2-1 to Voigt. That's a foul ball. 2-2. The RoughRiders scored first last night. Went on to win the game by the score of 9-6. It's the Cardinals who struck first on Tuesday night, but the Riders rallied for a comeback win, something that they have fashioned themselves off the big league team. 30 comeback wins this year. Just a bit outside, and the count is full on Voigt. Voigt 18 homers, 63 runs batted in to go along with the batting average near 300. This guy that plays his pro ball now where he played his college ball at Hammons Field in Springfield, the home of Missouri State. 3-2, sprayed to right. And Bell is there. That'll be deep enough. Brings in the run. The Cardinals are on the board on a sac fly from Luke Voigt. RBI number 64 for the first baseman. Gerardo gave up 5 runs his last time out, but prior to that with the Riders in 3 appearances spanning a total of 17 innings, had surrendered only 3 earned runs. But he's given up a run here right off the bat.
Yeah, the last inning was unusual. He gave up a career high 11 hits. Typically, he's the kind of guy who's only going to give up 5 or 6 in an outing.
Older player here, Jonathan Rodriguez. Rodriguez started the year in AAA, 26 years of age.
But even with that outburst, I looked it up, he's only allowing runners to reach at a 276 pace, which is well below average for the Texas League. And certainly when you're talking about a 20-year-old who's only been here a couple of weeks, it's pretty amazing.
And mostly righties in this lineup. He holds right-handers to a 233 batting average. A wave and a miss there. That's 1-2. So the Cardinals strike first, trying to avoid being swept. Good idea there from Ariel Jurado. It doesn't get him to swing. Cardinals have not been swept all year. In danger of that. They were the first half champs in the North. Springfield got off to a great start this season. Cardinals went 41-29 in the first half. They're 3 games under in the second half, 24-27. Payoff pitch from Jurado. Boy, very close, just missed. That's only the 4th walk he's handed out as a Rough Rider. Rodriguez is his 27th walk. And a runner on at first here with a run across already.
Right. We talked about his control. It's very good. We're not quite seeing it right off the bat, but this is his 5th start in Double-A, and that's only the 5th walk he's issued.
Yeah, the rain's starting to pick up slightly again here as well. Something else he's having to battle out there. So strike to Blake Drake. Led a 3-run home run in yesterday's game and hit a grand slam back at Hammons Field. Drake has 4 homers and 18 runs batted in since coming up from high A. Swing and a miss.
And that looked like definitely a curveball. That will come in typically in the 78 to 80 range.
Jurado to the plate. Got him swinging. So Drake put away for the final out. Jurado gets out of things somewhat, limiting the damage. The 1 run on 2 hits. And the Riders coming up when we come back. Rough Riders today look like this. Darren Mastroianni leads off in center field. He's the longtime journeyman big leaguer. He's been with the Blue Jays and the Twins. Pinto batting second and left. Ibanez hitting third. The Cuban star at second base. Joe Jackson cleans up the great nephew of the shoeless Joe Jackson. Alexis Bell in right field. Luis Marte over at third today. Kiner Falefa doing the catching, batting seventh. Edwin Garcia playing first base. And Alberto Triunfel rounding out the starting 9 for manager Joe Mikulic's crew today. Defensively for the Cards, Blake Drake up the middle and center. Vaughn Bryan is at right while Josh Rodriguez is at left. Paul DeYoung plays third base. Joey Hawkins at shortstop. Alan Staton at second base and Luke Voigt at first. Catching today for Johnny Walter is Jesse Jenner, hitting his first start of the series. Luis Cruz, catcher the first couple of nights. Here's the number on Walters. The 0-4 record, a 6.35 ERA, 28 to third innings with 24 strikeouts next to 13 walks. He fires his first for a strike to Darren Mastroianni. Walter, though, took a no-hitter into the 9th inning his last time out. And a crazy game. The Cardinals ended up losing 0-1, the Tapper foul. Mastroianni playing with the Rough Riders here tonight for the 6th game. Just came over from the Twins organization. Was released and picked up by Texas last week. Walter out of the windup. Close, but home plate umpire Reed Gibbs says it's a ball.
Yeah, Mastroianni's got 136 games of major league experience, and he actually debuted about 5 years ago with Toronto. He spent most of his time with Minnesota. But you know, he got released not ago, and the Rangers definitely needed a person down here because of the trade of Lewis Brinson and Ryan Cordell getting hurt.
A little outfield depth, a guy that can play center field, leadoff batter. And he rips through a fastball for strike 3. So Mastroianni is down to open the game for Johnny Walter. And Edward Pinto coming up. A little sink to his fastball there. Mastroianni swinging over the top. Here's Edward Pinto. We talked about in the open. He has been on fire. Batting .400 with Frisco.
He has. It's kind of the thing where you might expect a guy to struggle early on, given that he jumped 2 levels and had spent the last 2 years in low A Hickory, but he's acted like he should have been here all season.
Gets a piece of that one. Last night, Pinto going 2 for 4. Already his 5th multi-hit game in 12 contests for the RoughRiders.
And he was a guy when they signed him. His story was contact. He was a guy, if he's going to make the major leagues, it's going to be because of hitting for a high average, and that's what he's been doing here.
.311 career batting average in the minors. Hit .337 at the time of promotion from Hickory. Worked himself into a hitter's count here. He led the Crawdads when he came up from Hickory in batting average. Also in slugging and OPS. 3-1 now from Walter.
Yeah, and he's not the kind of guy, particularly on Frisco, who you think is going to lead the team in slugging. He's more of a singles guy, but he's got some doubles power.
4 doubles in 12 games for the Riders. Yeah. Count now full. Here's the payoff. And he's got himself a walk. That's his 5th already with the Riders. And Pinto gives the RoughRiders the first base runner of the day. RoughRiders winning a series yesterday, taking the 2nd of 2 games against Springfield last night. Their first series win in 9 tries. 4 losses, 4 series splits. Been a tough second half for Frisco, but the offense has come alive the last 2 days. Here's Andy Ibanez.
And speaking of Hickory, that's where Ibanez opened the season. Signed out of Cuba for not a whole lot of money given to what some of the guys from Cuba are getting nowadays, but kind of an under the radar guy at first. Saw him out in Surprise, the very first at bat I saw of anybody out there this spring. He hit a home run, so that was nice to see. He started down there basically because they didn't have another spot for him, but he tore apart the South Atlantic League to where people just weren't even pitching to him anymore, and they finally moved him up to Frisco.
It's a piece of that one, but it's a ground ball. Could be 2. And it is. 5-4-3 double play. Ibanez rolled up to end the inning. And Johnny Walter faces the minimum in the first. 1-0 Cardinals to the 2nd here on Fox Sports Southwest.
Tomorrow, August 19th, we're turning Dr. Pepper Ballpark into Rio North for Olympic night. So come on out and meet Olympian Johnny Quinn and enjoy some of our Olympic-style entertainment. Also, make sure you're one of the first 1,000 fans through the gate so that you can receive a pair of these awesome patriotic sunglasses, courtesy of Palm Breeze. Back to you, Nathan.
Thank you very much, Lorena. Looking good down there with those sunglasses. Sure to pick those up Friday night here at the yard. Jurado back to work. It's a swing and a miss out of Jesse Jenner, the catcher, to start the 2nd inning. Cardinals on top with a run in the first today. Jenner hitting .242, a homer, and 2 runs batted in. There's a fly ball. Bell over towards the line. And a 1 away. Cardinals able to score a run on a double and a sacrifice fly in the first. The RoughRiders needing to play from behind today. But if Jurado is anything like he's been for most of this season, he will keep Frisco in the ballgame. Here's Alan Staton for the first time. Staton watches one go by. Is an undrafted guy, Alan Staton. Always a great story when a guy makes it to this level without having been drafted. He's ahead here 2-0. Played his college ball at North Green University in Tigerville, South Carolina. 2nd pro year. Ground ball foul for Jurado.
And one thing Jurado will do, especially when there's nobody on, he will work very fast. Gets the ball and he's pretty much ready to go.
Throws a ton of strikes, as we talked about. Great command. Here's another ground ball and another foul one.
And you can see early on that 2-seam fastball, it's got a lot of sink on it. It's running about 89 or 90 right now. Very, very hard to get underneath.
Here's the 2-2. Line drive, that's a base hit. Jammed him, but Staten able to muscle it into the outfield. That's the third Springfield hit. For Staten, he has a hit in back-to-back games now. He had a triple last night in the 8th.
And that's a pitch like that one in the first inning. It kind of floated on him a little bit.
So one out base runner. The Cardinals had a leadoff base runner in the first. Here is Johan Acevedo getting his first start of the series. Swinging a foul ball. Acevedo, who doesn't play in the field much, DHs a lot. 23-year-old out of Caracas, Venezuela. Came up on July the 6th from high A. He's playing in his 18th ball game. One and one. Acevedo batting 140, no homers and 2 runs batted in.
Looks like he was trying to throw a slider there and it kind of misgripped it a little bit, ran high.
There's a good pitch. There's that sinking fastball. You see it go right under the bat.
Yep, that one came in at 88 miles an hour. When I saw him down in San Antonio a couple weeks ago, most of what he was doing was running about 90 to 94. But regardless of the velocity, it's a good pitch.
Yeah, maybe the elements playing a factor tonight at all?
Could be, could be. You know, I know they do a good job of keeping the grounds, but like I say, I joked about it earlier, but really pitching out in high desert where it's so dry, this has to be a different experience for him.
1 and 2. Another foul ball. Just wonder, trying to make sure you got a good grip out there. This is more than humid tonight.
Yes, it is. It is very humid. You're basically walking around in a swimming pool tonight. Nice part is that it's not quite so hot.
More weak contact and another foul ball speared by Marte over there. You know, I love Marte. He's played third a couple of times now. This is his 4th game over there at third base. He plays third, he said, like he plays shortstop. Just wants to go after the ball. And you see it on ground balls like that down the line. He's still sprinting well into foul ground to get the ball.
Yeah, you're exactly right. He kind of plays everything like a shortstop. He's a very good defensive player. He's a guy who can make it to the major leagues if he can just hit just a little bit. Most of the time, he really hasn't had much luck at the plate, although he has been quite a bit better this year. And he had about a 2-week stretch where he was practically carrying the team on offense. It was fascinating. He's a guy who doesn't have to hit much to be successful, but some would help.
Corrado gets his second strikeout here. Another sinking fastball.
And you can see on that replay, that's a pitch. It just has a ton of sink. I mean, it almost looks like if you're casually watching it, it almost falls like a changeup, except it's coming in at about 90 miles an hour.
And Joey Hawkins, the shortstop's now up. This is the 9th man in the lineup for Springfield. We scored a run in the first and have a hit against Corrado here in the second, but he's 1 out away from getting out of things. Hawkins picked up his first AA hit last night. He's 1 for 16 as a Cardinal. Had a bloop single in the second. Teammates were going wild when he got it. And he's quickly in a hole here at 0-2. Hawkins out of Canada. Also played his college ball at Missouri State. Did he go? Yes, he did.
Yes, he did.
Says Clayton Ham, the crew chief. It's another strikeout for Ariel Jurado. And he's out of the second inning unscathed. No runs, a hit. 1 man left. The Cardinals lead at 1-0 to the bottom of the second here on Fox Sports Southwest. Riders down early 1-0 here in the bottom of the second inning. And here to start the second inning, we send it over to public address announcer here at Dr. Pepper Ballpark, Sean Heath, to introduce the junior PA today.
Your attention to the third base dugout and welcome tonight's junior PA announcer. It's Tinsley. She's 6 years old from Little Elm. Take it away, Tinsley.
Now batting for the Frisco RoughRiders, number 17, Joe Jackson.
What a star there. Tinsley's ready to take Sean's job away. Here's Joe Jackson. Leading off for the Riders, Johnny Walter faced the minimum in the first inning. It's Jackson, Bell, and Marte to bat for Frisco in the second inning. Jackson swinging at the first, gets a base hit. Joe gets off the schneid, his first hit in the series. A leadoff base runner for the Riders here, down by a run. Got a pitch he could handle, went the opposite way. Just love Joe Jackson's approach.
Yeah, I like guys who are aggressive on the first pitch. If they see something they like, there's nothing wrong with, you want to try to work the pitcher, but if a guy's just trying to get one over on the first pitch and you like it, go after it.
And that's one of the things in the Rangers farm system they really preach, is being aggressive on the fastball for their hitters. And he did it there. Here's Alexis Bell, who had a great night last night, going 4 for 4. Takes inside. Here's Bell from last night. One of his 4 hits, his first big fly. Home run coming in the 4th inning. The RoughRiders scored 6 runs in that 4th last night. He takes low here and is ahead in the count 2-0. Having a great series, 5 for 7. And is batting .643 over his last 4 games.
4 for 4 last night, and I believe it was the previous night he got a double and then advanced to third and then home on wild pitches. Scored the go-ahead run.
It's one well, but not well enough here to right. Brian's got that one. Bell is out for the first time today. 1 gone. And now it'll be Marte, the shortstop, who Scott talked about his defensive prowess, but a nice offensive year for Marte this year. He's batting .272.
Yeah, he's shown quite a bit of improvement. To be honest, he really hadn't hit much at all in previous years, but they've got him in this level just because he can defend at this level very well, and he's picked it up with the bat.
18 extra base hits, including 5 homers. Takes a strike here. His career high in home runs came last year when he hit 6, but he did that in 122 games. He's hit the 5 this year in just 55 contests. Walter coming off that great outing, off to a decent start tonight. So he checks on Jackson over there. Not much of a threat to go. Jackson does have 2 steals.
And Marte's a guy, they'll certainly take his power, but that's ultimately not what you're looking for him. With him, you just want him to get on base any way possible.
Lines one here. That's down. Base hit. Jackson on his way to third base. And the throw comes into second. Going first to third, Joe Jackson. The Riders have something cooking here in the second. So Marte comes through. He came in on a 1 for 21 spell. But gets a hit here to the opposite way. Nice slicing line drive. And now Kiner Falefa a chance to do some damage. Kiner batting .256. No homers, but a singles hitter. 24 runs batted in. First one's way off the plate for ball 1. It's a wild pitch here would tie things up.
Yeah, Kiner Falefa was a guy picked in the 4th round of 2013. He was drafted as a middle infielder, but this year they converted him to catcher, and he has taken to it exceptionally well.
Takes a pitch there. He was a midseason all-star as a catcher in the Texas League.
That's right. Deserved it. I saw a game the first game I saw this year in Frisco was in May, and it was a day game. And about halfway through the game, I realized I was kind of embarrassed. It's like, I don't even know who's catching. And then I saw that it was Kiner Falefa. And it occurred to me, if we're halfway through the game and I don't notice who the catcher is, that must be a catcher who's doing a pretty good job.
Yeah, it's like umpires, right? They're doing a great job. You don't notice it.
Exactly. And it was him. He was having a very good game.
Riders threatening here. 2-1 to Kiner Falefa. Bouncing ball could be 2. 1, 2, double play, and the Cardinals are out of the jam. Nice job by Staten there to tag Marte and get the twin killing. Nothing for the Riders here in the second. It's 1-0 Cardinals to the third. We've hit the third here in Frisco with the Cardinals leading at 1-0. Frisco looking for a series sweep with a win tonight. On another perfect night at the ballpark, really, as it looks like the rain has mostly subsided. It's created another cool evening here. 79 degrees as we got underway this evening. And Ariel Jurado back to work to face the top of the Springfield lineup here in the third inning. Vaughn Bryan, Paul DeYoung, and Luke Voigt to do the swinging here for Dan Billardello's crew. Nathan Barnett alongside Scott Lucas of the Newberg Report with you here. Here's Bryan. He singled to open up the game. And Jurado gets strike one. Bryan, who joined the club just a little more than a week ago from High A. He's quickly behind here 0-2. Batting leadoff tonight. He's mostly been hitting in the bottom of the lineup. Nick Martini was promoted to Triple-A, and newcomer Thomas Spitz was the leadoff man the last 2 nights. He's getting a crack at it here. Guy with good speed. Bryan, double-digit stolen bases for the year. Blown away. Good take there from Bryan. So far for Jurado, he's allowed 3 base hits, a walk, and struck out 3.
Yeah, it looked like he was trying to work in the changeup there on that pitch. Couldn't get him to bite.
Tries to go back to the curveball there. Stays a little up. Payoff pitch now to the switch hitting Bryan. And he walked him. Second walk of the game. 2017 All-Star Game is headed to Frisco. The showcase will be held on Tuesday, June 27th at Dr. Pepper Ballpark and feature top prospects from the Rangers, our rival Houston Astros, the World Series champion Kansas City Royals, and 5 other MLB organizations. See the future MLB stars like Elvis Andrus, Jurickson Profar, and Nomar Mazara now. For more information and to lock in your 2017 All-Star Game tickets, visit RoughRidersBaseball.com. First toss in, a strike to Paul DeYoung, who doubled his first time up at the plate. Scott, we're going to get you to come back for the All-Star Game next year?
I would love to. That would be fantastic.
That's going to be fun. Can't wait for that. Less than a year away. All-Star Game this year was in Springfield.
I don't believe I've ever seen an All-Star Game.
Oh, we definitely got to come then.
If I did, it was in Round Rock a long time ago, and I forgot it.
Be the 3rd All-Star Game in RoughRiders history. Pitch a little into DeYoung. DeYoung, one of the more dangerous threats in the league, certainly on this team. Tied for 3rd in the league in home runs, 4th in runs batted in.
But yeah, those are always fun, and particularly since Frisco usually has a good team, and there's only 8 teams in the league. You can see 5 or 6 guys from the RoughRiders here during that.
9 were selected this season.
Yeah, well, there you go.
Few didn't make the trip. Most notably Adam Parks, who was lost for the year to Tommy John surgery. Great year with the RoughRiders before going down.
Yeah, that was too bad. He's a guy with some promise, and hopefully next year he'll be able to come back and get back on track.
Lazy fly to center. Mastroianni is there. And he's got it. One gone. Well, it's got a little odd here, but a lot of fly balls so far from Jurado.
Yeah, he's kind of pitching differently than what we talked about in the promo. You know, the results have been okay, but some of it is just some of the fastballs aren't. Once in a while, he's leaving a fastball that's not quite sinking as much. Like I say, maybe partly it just could be one of those nights. It could also be the conditions.
And maybe developmentally, too. You know, he talked about after his first start with the RoughRiders when he had 1 bad inning. He checks on the runner here. He had 1 bad inning, and he said it was because he was working on his changeup. He said he went right back to the sinker and mowed him down. We've seen a lot of off-speed stuff here from him early on.
We have. We've seen a lot of curveballs, which is basically the 4th pitch in his repertoire. And as you can see, his curveball's got a little bit of tilt to the glove side. You know, sometimes it almost looks like a slider. That's a pitch that he's working to try to tighten up a little bit.
Luke Voigt at the plate now. Sacrifice fly back in the first has provided the only run of this game.
You know, his curveball is not your typical hammer curveball like you might see from, say, Luke Jackson, who's in Frisco right now.
1-0 to Voigt. And pitching carefully to him here. He misses again.
But that's something at this level you want guys to keep doing. If it's not like in the major leagues where a pitch isn't working for you and you might kind of drop it. They want you to keep throwing that pitch.
Runners on the move. The pitch slammed to center field. Mastroianni on the run, and he's got it. What a great catch by Darren Mastroianni. And the runner has a long way to trot back. Brian does get there in time. But we see Darren Mastroianni fielding his position well.
That's why they signed him. Not to take offense against anybody else at the roster, but I don't know if anybody else healthy right now would have caught that ball.
Really the only true center fielder on the roster right now, and boy, he made that look almost easy. Took a perfect, almost perfect route, just that last adjustment step. And in these conditions here tonight, with a little bit of a breeze and rain falling throughout the game so far, that's a nice play. And saves Hirado too. His runners on the move. Throw down from Kiner Falefa just a little bit late. But Kiner's been great throwing out base stealers this year at 46%, but Von Bryant picks up the steal.
Yeah, like you said, that's the 20th stolen base against him. 16 caught for a guy who was not putting on the gear before this spring. That's you can't ask for any better than that.
Hard to ask for much better than that for anybody, much less someone just starting to catch.
Sure.
2-0 now on Jonathan Rodriguez. Drew a walk his first time.
Hopefully Mastroianni's okay. Looked like he was limping just a little bit when he came back from that wall.
Another low one. First base is open. It's 3-0 now. Blake Drake is on deck. Cardinals have struggled with runners in scoring position in this series. They went 1 for 13 in game 1. There's a strike. So far tonight, Cardinals without an at bat with a runner in scoring position. This is their first. Hirado works it back to a full count. Well, he's walked 2 already tonight. Take another look at this stolen base here from Von Bryant. Kiner Falefa almost gets him here. Pretty good pitch to run on, and still a really close play.
Yeah, it was. It was, you know, it was a slider, and it was Kiner Falefa's arm side, but still had to go pick it up from off the ground and then throw it.
See the quick release on him there too.
Right.
Here's a 3-2. That should do it. Ibanez on to first base, and Hirado's out of the inning with one of his more usual ground ball outs to end the 3rd inning. Nothing doing for the Cardinals. 1-0 to the bottom of the 3rd. RoughRiders trying to break through against Johnny Walter here in the bottom of the 3rd inning. They picked up a couple of hits and a walk against him so far, but Springfield holds the advantage here in the final game of this series and the season series between these two clubs. First time the Riders have faced Walter all season. Edwin Garcia is going to be leading things off here in the 3rd. It's 8-9-1 in the Riders lineup. Garcia followed by Alberto Triunfel and Darren Mastroianni. Sun starting to set here in Frisco as we play under the lights. Numbers on Garcia. Split time this year between AAA and AA. Take strike 1. Here's a guy that won't get a lot of praise, Scott, but a guy that sort of makes the organization tick.
Sure. He's only 25, but he's been in the system a very long time because of the age at which he signed. He's I don't want to quite say he's taken over the Wheeler Rodriguez role, but at least positionally he has. He's a guy that they've bumped up to AAA once in a while, and basically you can put him just about anywhere on the field. And right now it's first base.
There's a line drive and caught. Nice play by Brian, having to come in and towards the line. Had a really good jump on that ball. And Garcia put pretty good wood to the ball there. He is retired for the first out of the inning. Watch the break here on Brian. Great jump and a good path to the ball. So Garcia retired. Walter at 26 pitches through 2 1/3. Here's Triunfel. Inside, that hit him. So the Riders get a base runner for the 3rd straight frame. They've had somebody on in the first 2 batters of every inning. And back to the top of the lineup. Number 9 man is on, and Darren Mastriani coming up. Let's see where this hit him here. Oh, looked like it just grazed his uniform.
Just got the jersey.
That doesn't sting.
If you're going to be hit, that's the way to be hit.
That's the way to do it. First one outside of Mastriani. Struck out his first time. Mastriani spent most of this year at AAA and a little in the big leagues. Flies one foul here, 1 ball and 1 strike. Today is his 6th game with Frisco in this stint with the RoughRiders, his first time in AA. Since 2012, when he was a member of the New Britain Rockcats. No longer exists. That's now the Hartford Yard Goats, who still don't have a home yet.
Hartford Yard Goats in name and uniform only.
They're the Road Warrior Yard Goats, I guess.
They are. They've played some games in, I think, some independent parks, some of the New York Penn League parks before that season started. And now I just think they're playing in road parks in the Eastern League. It's a messy situation up there.
Walter out of the stretch to Mastriani. It's a foul ball there. Walter, a guy who's been an independent ball as well. In fact, spent parts of the last 2 seasons in the early part of this year with the New Jersey Jackals in the Can-Am League. Comes inside on Mastriani here. Just a piece. Another check on the runner. Same league that Alexei Bell played in last year, the Can-Am League.
Yeah, that's kind of a mid-level independent league. To be honest, you don't hear about it much in Texas. But there's some players who've come back and done a little bit of damage in affiliated baseball.
Another throwback at 3 and foul. He does have 4 steals for the RoughRiders.
Ex-Rangers fireballer Wilmer Font pitched in the Can-Am League for a while, and now he's back. I'm drawing a blank on which team he is, but I've heard his velocity is back up too.
Chris Colabello played in the Can-Am League. A weak little ground ball to short. Could be 2 again. To second for 1, throw to first, and he's safe. Nearly the 3rd straight inning with an inning double play. But Mastriani with pretty good wheels, able to beat it out. A slowly hit ground ball too, tough to turn. And the Riders threat here left to Edward Pinto. Andrew Albers played in that league. Craig Breslow. And 2 umpires reached the major league from the Can-Am League, including Will Little.
Craig Breslow was with Round Rock for about 48 hours.
I was going to say,
2 weeks ago.
Days.
Yeah.
Pinto walked his first time up. They play into 3rd, looking out for a bunt. Runners on the move. The throw is not in time. Mastriani swipes his 2nd bag with the Riders. Close play there. But he just beats the throw from Jenner in time. So now in scoring position, a single can bring him in. Boy, good throw from Jenner. Boy, that was close. This pitch was called a strike, so it's 0-1 on Pinto. It's another strike. RoughRiders with runners in scoring position so far today, 0 for 1. Went 6 of 17 last night. Half of their hits coming with runners in scoring position. They scored 9 runs in the game. Walter trying to get out of the jam, and Pinto staying alive.
Yeah, Mastriani really shown so far why the Rangers picked him up. As we said earlier, he's got a fair amount of MLB experience, so he's a guy who you really would hope would spark this club in the waning days.
Mastriani being held close by Hawkins at short. 0-2 still on Pinto. Walter's pitch And another foul.
And in the case of a guy like him and also Carson Blair, who's the catcher who's on the bench tonight, it's a case where, the Rangers obviously like them enough to sign them, but if they do well enough and fit in well with the organization, it might be a situation where you offer them a contract next year and they start out in AAA and could be, reserves for the Major League roster.
0-2 grounder. Trying to think of an example of that from the last year. We didn't have Pedro Siriaco in the system, but he's a guy who some big league experience that was on the AAA Round Rock team for most of the year, and if somebody up the middle had gotten hurt, he would have maybe had a shot.
Sure. Yeah, they ended up trading Siriaco to Miami for Eric Jokic, a pitcher. But you need guys like that in your system.
Pitch to Pinto, line drive, base hit. Mastroianni getting away from third. Here's the throw from Rodriguez, and he's safe. We're tied on the base hit by Edward Pinto. Ends up at second base on the play. Pinto continues to swing a hot bat, and we've got a new ball game here in the third inning. And this guy just on fire, hits in 4 straight now, and 4 of 7 in the series. See Mastroianni's speed on this one as well. Pinto shoots that through the left side, and on a pretty well-struck ball, Mastroianni getting a chance to come around to score on this play.
Yeah, Pinto is showing immediately the kind of player he is. Jurado has looked a little bit different than we talked about earlier, but Pinto's just a straight-up contact guy, a lot of singles, and boy, he's as hot as any player in the system right now.
Continues to hit the ball the other way, too. That has been his bread and butter. Now Andy Ibanez up. He takes a strike. Andy hit into a double play his first time up.
I think in Pinto's case, when it comes to the Rule 5 decisions, I don't see him being somebody you put on it. But I also don't see him as somebody who'd be taken by another team. But he's certainly somebody who's up to standing.
And the way he's played down the stretch, he should have a shot to start at this level next year.
Yeah, I would think so. I could almost say early on that it might be a case he's just up here to help out and they'd put him back in high A next year. But given how he's done, I think you're right. I think there's a pretty good shot he could just stay in Double A.
Guy that can play all 3 outfield spots, although primarily plays left field.
And that's something they would determine based on the personnel they have next year and how guys do next spring.
Ibanez waves through that breaking ball, and the inning is over, so Walter gets out of it, but not before the Riders tie it up. 1-1 to the 4th here on Fox Sports Southwest.
Schedule your date with Destiny and be here at Dr. Pepper Ballpark this Saturday, August 20th for Star Wars Night. Enjoy some out-of-this-world entertainment, meet some of your favorite Star Wars characters, and watch your Rough Riders don these awesome Star Wars-themed jerseys. So see you Saturday, and may the Force be with you. Back to you in the booth.
Thanks, Lorena. Star Wars jerseys on Saturday night. Stormtrooper inspired. You a Star Wars fan, Scott?
I am. I was 9 years old when that movie came out.
First pitch strike from Jurado.
And I saw it in the theater. I couldn't tell you how many times.
Yeah?
Every time I drive my parents crazy going to see that.
Inside to Drake, who struck out his first time up, so Jurado with some new life here off the hook. Riders getting a run in the 3rd inning on the RBI single from Edward Pinto. Springfield's lone run coming in the 1st today. Rip and a miss, strike 2. Jurado, the only Panamanian-born pitcher in Rough Riders history. One of just 2 players from Panama ever to don a Rough Riders uniform. There's a little nubber. Foul at the plate. We'll test your Rough Riders history. You happen to know the other one? I'm sure you'll know by name once I tell you.
Boy. I think you're just going to have to tell me.
Julio Mascara.
Okay.
Does that name ring a bell?
A little bit.
2004 with the Rough Riders.
Yeah. No, I knew it wasn't.
Swing and a miss. Another strikeout for Jurado. That's number 4.
Yep. I knew it was a name past 2007 because that's when I started writing for the Newberg Report, but I do recognize.
Oh, that wasn't a fair question, and that's tough for you to have to go back before those years.
Yeah.
when you weren't staring at box scores every day.
That's right.
For those that don't know Scott's work, folks can find that at the NewbergReport.com. Sign up for the email list.
Yeah, it's free. Doesn't cost you anything, and you get a report from me every morning. And you also get reports, roughly 3 times a week from the namesake of the report, Jamie Newberg, who's been covering the team since 1998.
I think if you're a Rangers fan, you say you're a Rangers fan, you don't read it. I question the fandom a little bit. Foul ball, strike 2. Jenner flew out his first time up, 0 for 1.
Yeah, we try to cover the minor leagues thoroughly, maybe coming from it at a little bit different angle than you get from the local newspapers and MLB.com. Not that they don't do a fantastic job, but we're kind of trying to fill in a niche for people who want to dig a little deeper.
0-2 to Jenner.
So for my part, I see a lot of games in Round Rock because I live in Austin. I get up here whenever I can, see Frisco down, San Antonio a fair amount too. Hop on the radio with you every so often.
Corrado misses 2 balls and 2 strikes. What's going on with the Express these days?
Well, they were in a terrible slump like the Riders were for a while, but they've righted the ship out on the road.
Another swing and a miss. Corrado's got 2 Ks in the inning.
Yeah, they had a nice comeback victory last night where Gallo hit his 24th home run. Jared Hoying hit a home run in the 9th. Brett Nicholas has been doing well. I think all 3 of those guys are going to be September call-ups. Chichi Gonzalez has honestly had a rough go of it. He's trying to get his feet back under him and get back to where he was.
Corrado now facing Alan Staton, trying for a 1-2-3 inning. Doesn't have one yet today. Staton singled on his last trip. Bunch of former Rough Riders up in Round Rock, of course.
And Ronald Guzman is up there right now, too. And he's not hitting quite as well as he was in Frisco, which is really to be expected. But the Rangers obviously had enough confidence in him at the age of 21 to put him up there.
2-1. Corrado misses inside. Preston Beck up there as well.
Yeah, and Beck's done pretty well. Beck's done good.
2-1 on Staton. Make it ball 3. Corrado pitch count up a little bit here. Throwing 56 pitches in just the first 3 innings. He's up over 70 now.
Yeah, might be a situation where
that one gets down, base hit. So much for the 1-2-3 inning for Corrado here in the 4th. Staton is 2 for 2. He is the first player from either side with multiple hits in the ball game. The Cardinals have a 2-out base runner.
Might be a situation where he's only looking at 5 innings tonight. But that's pretty much what he's been doing anyway, so that's really not unexpected.
And just for comparison, Corrado threw only 76 pitches in his Rough Riders debut in 6 innings. As he gets ground ball here, this should end the inning. Proyon fell to second, and that does it. So the Cardinals are put away on just 1 hit, no runs. 1-1, bottom of the 4th. Riders coming back up when we come back. All evened up between the Riders and the Cardinals here at Dr. Pepper Ballpark tonight. Final game of this 3-game series in the middle of a 6-game homestand. Game 4 of the 6-gamer tomorrow night against the Tulsa Drillers, who come to town. Dodgers affiliate, but business to take care of tonight against Johnny Walter and the Springfield Cardinals. Got a run against him in the 3rd inning to tie things up. The Riders bring a good part of the lineup up here in the 4th. Joe Jackson, Alexei Spell, and Luis Marte, 4, 5, and 6 hitters to do the swinging. Jackson singled his first time up. Walter has surrendered 3 base hits in 3 innings with a walk and 2 strikeouts, and has induced 2 double play balls that have helped him out of innings. First toss to Jackson, who was first pitch swinging his last time up. Good eye there.
Now that he's taken a pitch, I can get the word in that Jackson and my father are alma maters of the same school, the Citadel in South Carolina.
Fifth rounder out of the Citadel in 2013. Jackson slams this one to center, but right at Blake Drake. He is put away for the first out of the inning. See the blue armbands that Jackson's wearing today. Those are Ed Randall's Fan for the Cure armbands that he's wearing today. A couple of the Rough Riders are donning those. Team side bat down in the clubhouse today. That'll be for charity. See it there on Bell's left arm. Flew out his first time up. And he takes a strike. Bell, a big-time star in Cuba, 32 years of age. Played from 01 through the 2013 season in the Cuba National Series. Fouls that one away, 0-2. It's the 07 MVP of the league when he hit 31 homers and drove in 111 runs. And if that's not good enough, how about he did it in 90 games?
That's pretty good.
0-2. And he gets a piece.
Yeah, Bell's not a guy. He's not a Jose Abreu. He's not even a Leonis Martin type. You know, he's already 32 years of age. This is a case where the Rangers, I don't want to say take a flyer on him, but basically, you know, sign him up and they're going to kind of see what they've got.
World Baseball Classic experience, Olympic experience for Cuba. Now makes his offseason home in Miami. Johnny Walter coming off a no-hitter his last time, pitching pretty well again. Just misses with a breaking ball there. This was the big inning last night for Frisco. They scored 6 runs in the 4th. And it all started with a 1-out home run on an 0-2 pitch to Bell. It's that one hard but foul. And it was a long battle like this one. This will be the 7th pitch of the plate appearance. He saw 6 last night, all strikes for plating one into the diamond deck. Oh, another foul ball. He's got good contact skills. And Bell a little shaken up. On that foul ball. Ooh.
Ouch.
Like it got him in the knee, maybe?
Yeah, maybe.
Knee of the shin. So I'm glad we're up here.
Yes. Well, he looks like he's ready now.
Here's the 1-2 to Bell. Good take there. And he has forced Walter to throw a 9th pitch of this at bat. Here it comes, just a little bit outside. Great plate appearance here from Bell so far.
Yeah, it is. Even this is one of those appearances where even if it doesn't turn out with a hit or a walk, it's a good one to draw from.
Getting to that bullpen, the Rough Riders have been successful against the Springfield bullpen here in the second half as well. 3-2, and he forces another pitch. This will be the 11th pitch coming up. Walter came into this inning a very reasonable 40 pitches through 3. But he has now had to throw 12 pitches, 13 pitches now in this inning. Walter played his college ball at Penn State, former Royals farmhand, and another foul ball. Either guy giving in right now. Walter joined the Cardinals in June when they signed him to a minor league deal. Went to Palm Beach for a bit. Payoff, broken bat flare. Could get down and caught. Nice running catch by Blake Drake. So Walter wins out in a long battle, but as you mentioned, a successful plate appearance.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with that. For half a second, I thought the 2 outfielders were going to play a little game. If I got it, you take it. But the center fielder just kept running.
So here's Marte. He singled his first time up. Swing and a miss. The RoughRiders fighting for their playoff lives here down the stretch. Elimination number down to 5. It is very unlikely Frisco will make the postseason, but they're not statistically out of it yet. Cardinals, meanwhile, are already in the postseason. Marte hits another one for a base hit, this time to right field. Nice to see Luis get going again. He's been so streaky, maybe getting hot again.
Yeah, that would be nice. Yeah, the Riders, they're going to need an awful lot of help to make the postseason. I think maybe a more realistic goal is to try to get their record up back towards 500. They're 56 and 63. Excuse me, 58 and 63 right now. So they do have a shot at that.
The division leaders are the Midland Rockhounds coming into play tonight. Midland, though, has lost 2 straight and losing again tonight to the Tulsa Drillers, who come here tomorrow. First, Kiner Falefa. There's a ground ball, and this should do it here in the inning. No, it's bobbled. Bobbled it short by Hawkins. And the Riders with new life here. The inning should be over, but instead, a runner in scoring position now. Boy, routine ground ball. Like Hawkins maybe took his eye off it.
Yeah. Well, he's leading off the next inning. Perhaps he was thinking about that a little bit.
So anything that scores in this inning would be unearned. The RoughRiders try to take the lead with Edwin Garcia. Put a good swing on the ball last time, but lined out to right field. Walter's first pitch swung on, and another ground ball. This one is fielded cleanly. Staten to first. The inning is over. So the RoughRiders threatened but failed to score, and we're still tied up through 4 innings here in Frisco. Ariel Jurado back to work here in the 5th inning. The RoughRiders in a 1-1 tie with the Springfield Cardinals. Jurado has been good so far tonight. A run in the first, but nothing since. 5 strikeouts in total.
Yeah, and both of the ones you're seeing here, we've got 2 sinking fastballs so far. Another sinking fastball. That is his money pitch. That's what's going to make. That's the pitch that's going to get him to the major leagues the quickest. As you've seen, the curve and the slider are lagging a little bit behind. The location on him hasn't been quite as sharp, and that's the main thing he's got to work on. But it does seem to me he's throwing a lot of those tonight instead of the changeup, which is already the more established pitch. And you'll see that a lot in the minor leagues, guys working on their weaker pitches.
Faces the number 9 batter to lead off and gives him a first pitch curve. Strike 1. It's Joey Hawkins. Hawkins struck out his first time up. There's another strike. That sinker.
And that's not the first time he's let a guy off with the curve and then come back with the fastball. I think we've had about 3 or 4 of those.
See what he does here. Oh, boy. Nasty swing and a miss. Drop third strike, though. Kiner Falefa to get it, and he'll have no play. It's a strikeout, but a wild pitch to allow Hawkins to reach base. It's the 6th strikeout for Ariel Jurado, who's tied his season high and is only 5 away from his career high. Look at this ball sink.
And that's another one of those fastballs where it almost looks like you're watching a changeup with as much downward action there is on it. It's a really nice pitch.
Vaughn Bryan with a ground ball to second, and they get 1. It's the only play they've got. Bryant will replace Hawkins at first base on a fielder's choice. Jurado has allowed just 1 runner into scoring position since the first inning. And the Cardinals have done really little since that first inning. 2 base hits, both singles since. Coming off his roughest outing of his season. He has bounced back nicely. Got a difficult assignment here with Paul DeYoung for the 3rd time. As he checks on Bryant, who already has a steal tonight. DeYoung a double in the first, flew out to center his last time up. First pitch inside. Runner up into the mid-70s now in pitches, 77.
Yeah, the most he's thrown this season is 87, so this is almost certainly going to be his last inning.
Fly ball, but that one's twisting foul. We get a shot of the bullpen, our bullpen.
And that's common with guys his age, especially at a level like this. You tend to want to manage their workloads, build them up slowly.
One-one, runners on the move, throw down a good one, but again, Bryan beats it. Second steal of the ball game for Von Bryan.
Jurado's up to about 108 innings now for the season. It's a situation where, given the number of games left, he's probably going to end up somewhere in the 120s. Really about 140 is all you're going to see from that's about the most you'll see from anybody in the Rangers organization in the minors, even if they're, you know, a Connor Sadzik big body type.
Next to DeYoung is slammed to left field. Let's see if they send the runner. They don't. Pinto gets it back in quickly, and Bryan's steal does not cost the Riders a run, at least not yet. But the Cardinals with their best threat since the first inning, trying to retake the lead. They led this game early on. It's the second hit tonight for DeYoung, and up comes Luke Voigt, rather. RoughRiders, though, so far, nobody going to the bullpen. You see everybody standing around down there. Carson Blair out there to catch everybody. Joe Filomeno, the closer, on the left. Luke Jackson, big league time, on the far right, next to Blair, sitting down in the sweatshirt there. And look at that, Darren Oliver right in the middle.
Hey.
In town with the RoughRiders. Here's Voigt, a little dribbler right at home plate. Kiner Falefa picks up in foul ground. I think those guys are probably listening out there to Darren Oliver. What do you think?
I hope so.
We get another shot of him when you get a chance. Voigt 0 for 1, a sac fly. Here comes the pitch. Even count. Tough spot here, runners at the corners. Look at Darren Oliver relaxing out there. Nice night.
It is. He looks very comfortable.
1-1. Ground ball through for base hit. Cardinals back on top. RBI single for Voigt. He picks up his 64th run batted in of the year. And the league's leading batter strikes. Remember, this inning all began because a runner reached on a wild pitch on a strikeout. And that runner, although replaced by Von Bryan in a sort, comes around to score. Springfield, who led early on in this game, has retaken things here in the fifth. Now Jurado tries to limit the damage. He doesn't have a ground ball double play tonight. And his first to Rodriguez is off the zone, ball one. Frisco is hit into 2 double plays. The Riders turned 3 twin killings last night. Rodriguez walked in the first, grounded out to second base his last time up.
And Jurado is starting to get those ground balls again. Unfortunately, they're finding holes. It's just something that's going to happen sometimes. But that's going to be, you know, if assuming things go well and he makes it to the major leagues, that's the kind of pitcher he's going to be. He's probably not going to be a high strikeout guy. He's going to be the kind of guy who keeps the infield very busy.
Time is called. They're going to go chat things over. They've been on the same page today, he and Kiner Falefa.
Yeah.
First little mound visit we've seen. Man, it's an awful quick one there. Jurado working with Kiner Falefa for the first time, but they've been in rhythm.
Yeah, haven't seen any problems at all so far.
2-1 Cardinals with a run in this inning. There's a ball hit out to right. Bell is right there, though. 2 away. So now the threat left to Blake Drake, who has been struck out twice by Jurado tonight.
You know, particularly for a guy like Jurado, you've got so many hitters now who are swinging even with 2 strikes for the fences, just like they would be with 0 strikes. And guys trying to get underneath the ball, there's more. The home run rate in the major leagues has gone back up. So if you can be the kind of guy who can frustrate that type of approach, it could really pay off.
Swing and a miss on Drake. Blake Drake, who came up on July the 4th, played his college ball at Concordia University in Portland. Puts a good swing on one here. Another long run for Mastroianni, but he's there, and the inning is over. Jurado gets out of it after allowing just 1 run on 2 base hits. We go to the bottom of the 5th. We're halfway through it, and the Riders playing from behind again. It's 2-1. Join In Touch Credit Union and the RoughRiders on Saturday, August 20th as we present Batter Up for Banking. At In Touch Credit Union's Plano branch on McDermott, you'll have the opportunity to increase your financial literacy. Meet Riders, players, and mascots. Take home free giveaways. Enter to win free Riders tickets and prizes, and enjoy free coffee and donuts. We hope to see you there. Batter Up for Banking, August 20th. Riders in a haul again. It's 2-1. Well-pitched ball game so far from both sides. Unearned run in the 5th coming across to score. That's the difference right now. Here's Alberto Triunfel. That one's across the middle for a strike. Triunfel was hit by a pitch his first time up. First pitch he saw. Johnny Walter continuing to work here for the Cardinals. The righty deals, and it's another weak ground ball. Shortstop Hawkins off the bag, but Triunfel is out of there. Nice job by Luke Voigt to stick with it.
Yeah, Walter's got an elevated ERA, but as you said, he almost threw a no-hitter his last start, and he's looking a lot more like the guy who almost threw a no-hitter than a guy with an ERA northward of 5.
Yeah, amazingly took a no-hitter into the 9th inning his last time out, but he's still looking for his first win with Springfield. He's 0-4. Here's Darren Mastroianni, 3rd time through the RoughRiders lineup. Mastroianni has scored the lone Frisco run. Came in on the single by Pinto. Way inside there. 2-0. Mastroianni from New York, played his college ball at the University of Southern Indiana. It's a hard ground ball, or a line drive here, caught at 3rd base by DeYoung. He's out. Well struck, but Walter a chance for his first 1-2-3 inning of the night. We haven't seen one yet. A lot of base runners.
Right, yes.
Both these pitchers doing a pretty nice job pitching out of jams today. Edward Pinto will try to reach for the 3rd straight time. He's 1 for 1 with a walk. Pinto reached his first 3 times last night. Here's a hard hit ball, but foul past Charnel Adriana, first base coach for the RoughRiders. Oh, and 2 from Walter. Good take there from Edward. Looks like maybe the rain is picked back up again.
Pinto's that rare minor leaguer. We talked about his contact skills. In his career, he actually has more walks than strikeouts. He's got 115 walks and only 94 strikeouts in his career. You almost never see that nowadays.
Stays alive once again. He's continued that trend with the RoughRiders. 5 walks, 3 Ks for Frisco so far, including tonight. You're right, though. You're more often to see a guy with a 5 or 6 to 1 strikeout to walk ratio than somebody with more walks than strikeouts.
Yes. Ground
Ball here. Nice scoop by Voigt. And he gets the out. It's a 1-2-3 inning for Corey Walter. First time tonight for either side. RoughRiders go awfully quietly here in the 5th. It's 2-1 Springfield as we head to the 6th here at Dr. Pepper Ballpark.
The Choctaw Lazy River is now open here at Dr. Pepper Ballpark. This is the largest water feature in any stadium in the country, and we throw the biggest pool parties right here in Texas. For more information on how you can book your next event here at the Choctaw Lazy River, or for individual tickets, visit ridersbaseball.com/lazyriver. Back to you, Nathan.
Thanks, Lorena. Looking like they're having fun out there tonight. The Thursday night pool party. Saturday night will be another one. Sold out tonight, as it often is on Thursday nights. Got to buy your tickets in advance for that thing.
Yeah, when I was out here in May, it was still under construction. This was my first chance to see it in its completion and at night. And, you know, I'm having to take my glasses off and rub my eyes to make sure that this thing is real. It's amazing.
New pitcher into the ballgame for the RoughRiders. Here's Richelson Pena. 3-1 record, .460 ERA. Almost 2-to-1 strikeouts to walks and less than a hit per inning. Pena has been up and down from AAA a little bit this year. He is coming on for the 12th time as a member of the RoughRiders. Hasn't pitched in this series or this homestand. Last pitched on the road at Tulsa. Pitched a scoreless inning. He had a tough outing against Springfield on the road last week in which he did not record an out. It's a little revenge on the mind maybe for him tonight here in a one-run game. Pena's first is outside. Gerardo, 5 innings tonight, 6 base hits, 2 runs both earned, 2 walks, and 6 strikeouts. Curveball there. It's 2-0. Pena throws a four-seam fastball, 2-seam fastball, a cutter, changeup, and a curveball. (2-0) on Jenner, and a pop-up into the rainy sky up overhead. Backing up the shortstop, Troyan Fell. He's got it for the first out. One away for Staten.
Yeah, it's a little bit unusual. Gerardo ended up having a little bit unusual night. I counted 2 more fly balls than grounders. You're almost never going to see that out of him. But overall, I think it was a very strong outing. He showed what he's best at, which is his 2-seam fastball. You know, the other pitches were lagging a little bit behind, but they've all got the chances to be at least average pitches.
See if Pena can figure out how to get Staten, who hit singles each time he was up against Gerardo. He's ahead of the count here, 1-0.
And again, we're talking about a guy who's much younger than his competition. Youngest pitcher in the Texas League.
There's a line drive. Another base hit for Staten. 3 for 3 for the second baseman tonight, who's playing in large part because Bruce Caldwell is on the disabled list. He's an undrafted player. He's having himself a night here offensively.
3 for 3 and everything to left field.
Ripping it through the rain here. So 1 on for Johan Acevedo. 0 for 2 tonight for the DH. Pena gets it a swing and a miss. Seen Richelson as a starter and as a reliever this year for the RoughRiders. He took a perfect game into the 5th, a no-hitter into the 6th on the road in April. He has had some really bright flashes. When he is on, he is pretty tough. Fastball there at 90, just misses.
And he first kind of burst on the scene back in 2013 when the Dominican Summer League squad won the league championship. He was one of the starting pitchers on that club. And actually, Ariel Gerardo pitched the clinching semifinal game and the clinching championship game in that series.
Pena picks up a big win in that championship series as well, winning Game 3 to put the Rangers squad ahead 2-1. I believe that club was managed by Riley Westman. Does that sound right?
It does.
He's now in the Padres organization and moving his way up the ladder. Saw Riley out here at Dr. Pepper Ballpark earlier this year.
Pena endured high desert last year, which is one of the worst places in the United States to pitch. It's got a high elevation. The wind blows out. If you can pitch there, you can probably pitch about anywhere. This year, they've kind of moved him around between Frisco and Round Rock.
Nice movement there, late break.
Yeah.
2-2. Hard grounder to first base for 1. And back to first, still in time. Double play. First turn by the Riders tonight, and Pena faces the minimum here in the 6th. We got a good game here. Just 2-1. Bottom of the 6th coming up here on Fox Sports Southwest. Johnny Walter pitching a gem tonight so far for Springfield. The RoughRiders nearly keeping pace. It's 2-1 here in the bottom of the 6th inning. Nathan Barnett alongside the Newburgh Report's Scott Lucas here for our second to last television broadcast of the year. We'll wrap things up on the TV slate here on Fox Sports Southwest on Sunday. The Rangers' Paul Kruger will join us. Andy Ibanez leads off the inning for the Riders and fouls one down the third base line for strike 1 against Walter, who was allowed just 1 run in the 3rd and a total of 4 base hits. Plenty of umbrellas out, but not enough rain to keep us from playing here so far tonight.
Kruger will be a good guy to have on. He's risen pretty fast through the organization.
Yeah, he knows his stuff. We had him on earlier this year. Walter deals and gets him. 3rd strikeout, 2nd of Ibanez. He's having a tough night. He's 0 for 3. There's 1 out here in the 6th. Joe Jackson backups, hit the ball hard twice, a single and a line out. Just a little late on the fastball there.
A little bit. He's having, like you say, having a tough night. Now, we were talking about the 2013 Dominican Club. Kruger's one of those guys who I try to bend his ear once in a while. He used to spend a lot of time down there, knows the guys. I'd hit him up for, you know, not necessarily top prospects, but guys to keep a name on in the long run.
First pitch to Joe Jackson. There's a strike to Joe. Good eye there, 1-1. Jackson has been one of the most consistent RoughRiders hitters throughout the year. Their best hitter with runners in scoring position. Batting .370 in those spots, trying to get on here for his teammates. Walter continues to throw strikes. Better than 2-1 tonight. Strikes to ball ratio. 74 pitches, 53 strikes, 21 balls. It's a little foul ball here on the swing from Jackson, who stays alive. 3 strikeouts, 1 walk from Walter. See him wiping water on his sleeves, trying to fight off the rain here. Ground ball. Up with it is Hawkins. Jackson put away for the 2nd out. Walter here is set down 6 straight. RoughRiders don't have a 1-2-3 inning defensively tonight. Walter trying to complete his 2nd straight 1-2-3 inning against the Riders' attack.
Just checking the scoreboard, and a lot of next year's Frisco RoughRiders down in High Desert. They're up 8-4 over Lancaster in the 5th. That's a good bunch of guys. They're going to be making the playoffs for the 2nd year in a row.
First, Alex Hayes Bell 0 for 2. Who are some of the guys that RoughRiders fans should be keeping an eye on for potentially seeing next year that could be impact players?
Well, one, probably going to be Jurickson's younger brother, Jeremy. He's a 3rd baseman. He's kind of a little bit bigger guy than his brother. Doesn't play the middle infield, but He can hit some. Jose Trevino, who's ranked somewhere in the 20s in the system, got a little bit of power. He's actually hitting over 300 down high desert. He is a born leader. You will love him out there. He runs the show down there in high desert. Another one is Luke Tendler. He's
having a great year.
Yeah, he is. He's an older guy. He's 25 and plays the corner outfield, so he's a guy who, if he makes the major leagues, he's going to have to prove it at each level. But so far, that's what he's been doing.
2-2 on Alexei Spell. 0 for 2 tonight with a couple of flyouts. Riders have battled back once already, tying the game in the third. Falling back behind in the fifth.
Another guy to keep a name on would be an infielder named Josh Morgan, who was the third-round pick from a couple of years ago.
There's a pop-up. Void called off. Staten has it, inning over. Another 1-2-3 frame. We'll talk more about some of the younger future Rough Riders when we come back. We head to the seventh, 2-1 Springfield. Riders lawn tickets, including a Riders souvenir and a hot dog for Sunday through Thursday games, can be purchased for just $7 at Kroger. Visit RidersBaseball.com for a list of participating Kroger locations. Fans still enjoying the berm tonight, despite needing an umbrella out there. Riders behind 2-1 as we hit the seventh inning. Ariel Jurado 5 frames tonight, just 2 runs allowed, but on the hook for a tough luck loss. As Springfield brings the number 9 batter up, Joey Hawkins, who has struck out twice today and reached once on the K. Richardson Pena back out for his second inning of work. Faced the minimum in the last frame. Ball 1 to Hawkins. He'll be followed by Von Bryan and Paul DeYoung here in this inning. This is the final game of the season series between the Rough Riders and the Springfield Cardinals. Rough Riders needing a win tonight to level the season series at 6 aside. Line drive right field. Bell makes the catch. Hawkins is 0 for 3. Rough Riders win just 1 in 5 at Hammons Field in Springfield, but have a chance to be 5-1 here at home with a win tonight. Rough Riders won the season series last year, 7 games to 5. And hold the all-time season series record, 76 wins, 71 losses. Von Bryan's been on twice and a third time with a fielder's choice. Shows a bunt. He has singled, walked, stolen 2 bases.
And if you look at Pena's stats, if you look at him in Round Rock, where he spent a little under half the year, his ERA is 7.11. And you might look at that and say, well, he's kind of failed there. But honestly, I don't hold that against him. That was a situation where the Rangers were desperate for pitching. They had so many guys called up from Round Rock that they just had to use whoever they could. And Pena probably really wasn't ready to pitch at that level. Did the best he could. I think Double-A is a better spot for him right now.
Bryan able to smack that pitch up the middle. He's on again. Good effort there from Ibanez, just a little bit out of his reach. Rain continues to fall here in Frisco. We have not been delayed at any point, though, tonight. Runner on, 1 out. Cardinals looking for insurance. Paul DeYoung, 2 hits tonight, a double and a single. Swings at the first and fouls it away. He doubled back in the first inning. He has since flied out to center field and singled in the 5th. Part of a rally that helped the Cardinals retake the lead. Check on the runner. There's nobody warming up in the Springfield bullpen. You can see behind in the shot there. Johnny Walter looks like will be coming back out for the 7th. Nothing in 1 to DeYoung. Another foul. And it's strike 2. DeYoung, no strikeouts tonight, but second in the league in Ks with 131. This is a candidate for sure for Pena. who is looking for his first. Another throwback at Bryan, who again has already stolen 2 bases tonight. Both of them coming while Jurado was in the game, who had allowed just 1 steal so far coming into tonight. Got him that time. Second pickoff of the night, and both of them have come on Von Bryan.
Yeah, I was about to say, we haven't seen a, well, there's another nice move. Bryan's having a little bit of a rough night himself. Got a little greedy. Was a good running situation. Pena doesn't have a strikeout yet, but he is a guy who has a decent number of them over the course of the season.
One more strike here and the inning's over, and sure enough, right on cue, DeYoung strikes out swinging, and he faces the minimum again. It's stretch time here at Frisco. RoughRiders down by 1 here on Fox Sports Southwest. Well, if you like pitching, you like tonight. 2-1 Springfield. Of course, if you're a RoughRiders fan, you wish it was reversed, but still time for Frisco. They come up here in the bottom of the 7th, facing Johnny Walter, who continues to work. The starter has been pretty good so far tonight, Scott, and he's retired 7 in a row.
Yeah, he's looked good. Like you said earlier, he's a guy who's pitched more like the no-hitter guy than the guy whose ERA, even at this point, is an even 5.5. And since he's a guy that they signed out of indie ball, certainly they're not going to abuse him, but a guy like that, they're going to try to get as many good pitches as they can out of him, especially on a damp night like this.
82 so far tonight. He threw 104 in his last outing, which was a season high. 8 innings. 8+ innings pitched into the 9th. Luis Marte first up, first pitch swinging. Easy pop out for the second baseman, Staten. 2 hands, he's got it. Marte, who came into this inning with 2 hits in 2 at-bats, is now 2 for 3. The RoughRiders so far tonight being out-hit 8-4. The lone error has come from Springfield. Here's Connor Falefa, whose pass ball led to an unearned run in the 5th. That's the difference in this game. He's hit into a double play and reached on an error. Takes wide, ball 1.
Hopping back to what we were talking about earlier, the other guy I wanted to mention was he's playing shortstop tonight in High Desert, Josh Morgan, 3rd-round pick from a couple years ago. He's only 20 years old, which is very young for that level. Not a guy with a lot of power, but he's showing that he can hang at shortstop. He also, like Kiner Falefa, who's batting right now, was a guy that they tried out in spring at catcher, and they just decided it didn't take.
3-0 on Connor Falefa.
But I think in a typical year, you might have seen some of those guys come up to Frisco to close out the season. But this squad won the Low A Sally League championship last year, and they pretty much moved up as a group to High Desert. And it's just a bunch of guys that the Rangers want to keep together to see if they can get another championship down there.
Who knows? Maybe that championship's coming to Frisco next year.
That would be fantastic. But it's a good group. I think, you know, they're going to move a lot of these guys up at the same time. It's a good group of guys. I think you're going to have a lot of fun with them.
Well, 1 on here with 1 out. RoughRiders getting their first base runner since the 4th. First action of the night for Springfield. Ronnie Shaban loosening. He's been a closer at time. And we're getting a mound visit here. Could be it for Johnny Walter. Sure enough, Shaban's going to come into this game. Bill Ardello makes the call. And Walter's done after 6 1/3, matching his 2nd longest start of the year. He's in line for the win. And Shaban will try to hold it here. 2-1. We've got a pitching change in Frisco here on Fox Sports Southwest.
August 19th is Olympic Night presented by Palm Breeze. Meet Olympian Johnny Quinn and get your pair of patriotic sunglasses.
RoughRiders behind, but threatening here in the 7th. 2-1 score. New pitcher into the ballgame. First reliever used by Springfield tonight. It is Virginia native Ronnie Shaban, 7-3, 3.38 ERA. This guy that has closed some games for Springfield and has logged a lot of innings, 50 2/3 out of the pen. 38 strikeouts, 14 walks. RoughRiders seeing Shaban for the first time in this series, but they have faced him this year. This is his 40th appearance, which is one of the highest totals in the league, and he leads the active roster in saves with 10. This is a save situation, although unlikely that Shaban will go the rest of the way. He is coming on for the starter, Walter. Went 6 1/3 tonight. Walter, as of right now, 1 run, but he leaves property on at first base. 4 hits, 2 walks, and 3 strikeouts. And we'll see bespectacled right-hander Ronnie Shaban now. Where's number 47? Spent last year with Palm Beach and has been here all season. Riders sending Edwin Garcia to the plate with a runner on and 1 out. Alberto Triunfel to follow. Shaban fifth lowest batting average in the league against, and the 3rd lowest walks per 9 in the league at just 1.78. One of the tougher relievers of the year, and he has been tasked to put out a smoking fire here in the 7th. Garcia 0 for 2. Grounded out to second base his last time up, and lined out to right field in the 3rd. RoughRiders have never led this game. They tied it at 1-1 in the 3rd, fell back behind in the 5th. Shaban out of the stretch. Ball 1. RoughRiders finally get to face this bullpen of Springfield, which has been just so-so. They only have 11 blown saves, but they have lost a lot of their best arms. (2-0) now on Garcia. Walter currently in line for his first win as a Cardinal. Joined the organization in June. Pitched well tonight. Hitters count for Garcia. Make it 3-0. Frisco looking for their 31st come-from-behind win, and their first series sweep since May 19th, when they finished up a 4-game series against the Midland Rockhounds.
And I dare say I expect to see Garcia taking this pitch.
The old red light probably on. And it's a late strike call.
I mentioned earlier Garcia is only 25, but this is his 9th year in the organization. When you're one of those guys who signs out of the Dominican Republic or Venezuela, or in Gerardo's case, Panama, you can rack up a lot of years before you reach your mid-20s.
You talked about the comparison to Wilder Rodriguez earlier. I want to say that G-Rod played 13 seasons and yet was still in his early 30s when he retired.
Yes, that's right. So Garcia's a guy who's been able to take free agency, looks like at least 2 years, and the Rangers have brought him back both times.
Great teammate. Runner on the move here, and he spoils it foul. Like maybe a hit and run.
Just a guy to have around, and even at the age of 25, he's kind of an elder statesman. Once in a while, they put him up in Round Rock if they need somebody. They can move him around to fill in wherever they need.
Yeah, last year Garcia played at all 4 full-season affiliates. Played with the Crawdads, the Mavericks, the RoughRiders, and the Express. He's played for Frisco in parts of 4 different years. Checking on Connor again.
Speaking of the Mavericks, one more time, they're ahead 9-6 in the 6th inning, which is what you call a typical game in the California League. 97 degrees, the wind is blowing out 22 miles an hour. Elevation 3,000 every night.
Runners on the move again, and a ground ball out to short. Backhanded bobble by Hawkins, throws to first, and it's not in time. Garcia beats it out, and the Riders have 2 on here with 1 out. They are threatening in the 7th.
A little hard to tell on that one whether he had trouble getting it out of his glove or maybe thought he had a couple of milliseconds longer than he realized. Now he just couldn't. Yeah, that double clutch there at the end is what did it.
And they're ruling it an error as well. That's the second of the night on Hawkins, who came in with 1 this year. In 9 ball games, he now has 3. And a chance for Alberto Triunfel, who hasn't played a lot here of late. This is just his 3rd game in the last 8 Frisco games that he's checked into. 0 for 1 tonight. He's just 3 for his last 35, but he has been a better hitter with runners in scoring position than with nobody on. And he's got a chance to drive in Kiner Falefa and give the RoughRiders a tie once again. First pitch is high, ball 1. We get our bullpen at some point. Triunfel grounded out his last time up. Was hit by a pitch in the 3rd. He's 0 for 1. Shaban to the plate. Line drive left field. That is by Rodriguez. 1 scores. On his way to 3rd is Garcia. We have a new ball game. RBI double for Triunfel. Just what the doctor ordered. Line is closed on Johnny Walter. No decision tonight for the Springfield starter. Pitch up in the zone, able to handle it. And Rodriguez playing very shallow, beaten badly.
Very shallow and opposite way. I don't think they were expecting him to hit the ball down the line at all.
Just curious, Triunfel's a pretty dead pull hitter. Now they're going to play the infield in with runners at 2nd and 3rd. Darren Mastroianni can give the RoughRiders a lead. And he takes first base is open. Edward Pinto, though, on deck. We've talked about Pinto tonight, has been as hot as anybody. Mastroianni looking for his first hit. Hit the ball hard last time, right at 3rd. Shaban gets a swing and a miss. It's a blown save for Ronnie Shaban. His 2nd of the year, and the Cardinals' 12th as a club. Big moment of this game. And time is called. 4th time through the lineup for Frisco. Being out hit 8-5, but we're tied. Mastroianni checks his swing, and no, sir. He does not go. Mastroianni has already had some big hits for the RoughRiders since his arrival. 2 hits last night, drove in a run. Hitters count. Gets a piece of it, but a ground ball. That won't do it. He is 0 for 4 and the runners stay put. Well, we talked about him at the top of the broadcast tonight. We've talked about him off and on throughout the night. He's got a hit already. He's driven in 1 of the 2 RoughRiders runs, and maybe the most pivotal moment of this game to this point, Edward Pinto's coming up.
Yeah, I would say given the current constitution of the team, this is the ideal guy to have up in this situation. He's been as hot as anybody, and he's a contact-oriented hitter. Also left-handed.
And they're not going to give Pinto a chance. It's going to be an intentional walk. They'd rather face Andy Ibanez, who is 0 for 3 tonight, and the boos start to rain down from the Frisco faithful.
And you don't see many intentional walks in the minor leagues, not nearly as many as you see in the major leagues. Most of the time, the instructions are just to go ahead and pitch to him.
Here was Pinto's RBI base hit earlier in the game.
This is going to be Frisco's 9th intentional walk that they've drawn all season.
It's the second walk of the night for Pinto. Tying run already across. Go-ahead run is at third. Remember, there was an error in this inning. It should be over, so anything else that scores in this frame will be an unearned run. The Riders gave up an unearned run in the 5th to allow Springfield to move ahead. And now an unearned run could put the Riders ahead. Andy Ibanez, as we mentioned last time up, having a tough night, 0 for 3. Boy, look at the dirt in Walter's spikes on this rainy night. Trying to dig it out. Excuse me, in Shaban's cleats. Fires his first. Good take from Ibanez. 0 for 3. He's hit into a double play and struck out twice. Big spot for the Cuban star, just 23 years of age. Did he go? Yes, he did, says the home plate umpire. Here's a look at him trying to kick that dirt out. That's important because the landing spot, footing for a pitcher, being able to push off.
Yeah, you especially don't want a situation where you're sliding into your throw. That could be a disaster.
1-1 to Ibanez. That ball's hit well. Left center field. Drake, though, there. And the inning comes to a close. The Riders level the score. We're through 7. And we've got ourselves a new ball game. 2-2 to the 8th on the Fox Sports Southwest.
Sunday, September 4th is pitch night here at the ballpark. Join us for an unforgettable post-game show where fans take the field for fireworks, free popcorn, and the opportunity to watch the premiere of Fox's new TV show, Pitch. Visit RidersBaseball.com to get your tickets today. Take it away, Nathan.
Thanks, Lorena. We have a new ball game here in the 8th inning. Richelson Pena is coming back out for his 3rd inning of work. Yeoman's work so far out of the pen. He's kept the Riders in this game in relief of Ariel Jurado, who went 5 innings and 2 runs tonight. Riders tying things up in the bottom of the 7th. Good part of the Springfield lineup due up against Pena. Luke Voigt, the number 3 batter, leading off. First pitch strike from Pena, who faced the minimum in both the 6th and the 7th innings thanks to a double play and a pickoff.
And Pena's previous 2 outings were short, but throughout most of his career, he's been a starter or a long man. So this is pretty much his natural habitat.
He also hasn't pitched in 6 days, so had plenty of rest. Inside to Voigt, who tonight has driven in 2 runs. Both of Springfield's runs have come off of his swings. Sacrifice fly in the 1st and a single in the 5th. It's now just 2 back of Paul DeYoung for the team lead in runs batted in. 65. Good take there. It's 2-1.
But no, you were talking about your cleats. You know, one bad thing that can happen is you could end up throwing a wild pitch. Worse, you could end up, you slide in the middle of your delivery when you're exerting yourself that hard, and you can get hurt.
3-1 from Pena to open the 8th inning. Good ball game here in the final game of this series and the season series. These 2 teams won't play each other unless the RoughRiders can wiggle their way into the postseason and make it to the championship series. Springfield gets there as well. They're already in, having won the first half. Pena walks Voigt here to open the 8th. Looking for a little shutdown inning here. The Cardinals in a bunting situation here late in the game will bring the cleanup batter up. See if they ask him to lay down a bunt. Rodriguez, really not your prototypical cleanup hitter. Has hit more in the top of the lineup and the bottom of the lineup for the Cardinals this year, but with a lot of losses to AAA themselves, he has slid into the 3rd and 4th spots more often than not. 0 for 2 tonight with a walk. Swings of the 1st, and that ball is down for a base hit. First and second, nobody out for the Cardinals here at the top of the 8th inning. Springfield threatening in a big way against Pena. And the RoughRiders start to get some activity going in their bullpen for the first time since Pena has come on. Bullpen. Juan Grullon warming up. Lefty who mixes his pitches well. Got a good number of strikeouts for the RoughRiders, and they could use a strikeout here in what is now almost guaranteed bunting situation with Blake Drake up. 0 for 3 tonight for Drake. They throw to second, and boy, almost got him. Voit is back in there.
And talking about the bunting, even though Drake is the number 5 hitter in the lineup, you will see more bunting in this situation in the minor leagues. It's not a thing where in the major leagues you've got a big slugger up who just flat out couldn't bunt to save his life. Pretty much any spot in the lineup you'll see a guy try to bunt.
Another developmental process as well, learning how to bunt in these spots. Drake shows, but takes. You know, the chances that Blake Drake is the number 5 hitter when he first makes the big leagues is relatively small, to say the least.
Right.
So
Probably not going to happen.
And we saw Springfield try to bunt with their best hitter in the 9th inning in a tie game at Hammons Field earlier this year, Harrison Bader. Even with 2 strikes, they asked him to bunt. He ended up bunting out.
Yeah.
But for exactly that reason, he's not going to be the best hitter when he makes the Cardinals someday.
Right, right.
Shows again and takes a strike this time.
And also we're dealing with wet infield conditions. Even though this is a high level of baseball, it's not major league high. It's a situation where you're more likely to end up with a miscue on the defense and be able to reach safely. So bunting is actually a little bit, can be a good strategy in this situation.
Jesse Jenner is on deck. He's 0 for 3 tonight. They throw it second again, and Voit back in again. Another pivotal half inning of this game. The RoughRiders able to get a run in the 7th. Frisco, though, left them loaded. Riders have left on 7, going 2 for 7 with runners in scoring position tonight. Springfield's left on 6. Drake gets it down. Third base side, Pena to first, and boy, you talked about it, Scott, a little low. Nearly a tough one to handle for Garcia, but the Riders do get the out.
Yeah, that worked out. And another thing, you know, minor league pitchers, to be honest, sometimes they're pretty bad fielders. And you can catch a guy off, not off guard, but a guy who just won't be able to handle it. And Pena did a good job to get his body set before making that throw on a wet field.
And correction, that was actually Andy Ibanez covering on the bunt from second base, so even tougher having a guy that's used to not playing over there. Get a mound visit here. Pena's coming out of the game. They're going to bring on Juan Grullon with 1 on and 2 in scoring position to face Jesse Jenner. We've got ourselves a pitching change in the 8th inning. It's a tie 2-2 game, and we're back after this on Fox Sports Southwest. Juan Grullon comes into the ballgame for the RoughRiders here in Frisco. We're tied at 2. Frisco has battled back, erasing 2 different deficits, but are in danger of giving it away again with runners at second and third and only 1 out. The RoughRiders asked Grullon to come in and gun for the strikeout here in a tough spot. The lefty out of Garabo in the Dominican Republic, 26 years of age, in his second stint with the Rangers. See the numbers there on him, and the 41 strikeouts in 35 innings of work. This guy is not going to be somebody that throws overly hard, but mixes his pitch as well.
Right, yeah, he's the velocity is definitely going to be down compared to the guys we've seen before, but he's got kind of a funky delivery, comes over from the side, and it's not something that even the AA hitters are used to seeing. Like you say, he mixes his speeds and pitches well. Misses a lot of bats.
Pitched very well so far against the Cardinals this year in 3 appearances, has not allowed an earned run. And opposing batters hitting just 118 against Grullon. This guy that spent time in Japan playing in the Japanese minor leagues and returned to the Rangers organization in 2015.
Yeah, he kind of fell off the planet for a few years, pitched until 2011, reappeared in the Dominican League in the 2014, and then, like you say, rejoined the Rangers.
Here's Jenner 0 for 3. First from Grullon. Fouled away. He's got a strikeout tonight as Jenner. Grullon against the Cardinals, 5 1/3 innings with 5 strikeouts. It's clear the RoughRiders aren't going to intentionally walk Jenner, so the strikeout here is what you want with the infield playing in. He gets strike 2. Alan Staten on deck is 3 for 3 tonight.
So, yeah, we've got an 0-2 count from a guy who is yet to break 80 miles an hour.
Got him set up here 0-2. Tries to stretch the zone. Good idea there. Jenner flied out in the 2nd, struck out in the 4th, popped out to short in the 6th.
And like Pena, Grullon spent a little bit of time in Round Rock this year, and kind of the same situation. Didn't have the best of luck. Double-A is probably more suited to his current level.
Ground ball down the first base line. That one just sneaks in fair. 1 is home, 2 are home. And the Cardinals take their largest lead of the game. It's a 2-run double for Jesse Jenner.
That's one you can just attribute to plain old bad luck. A couple inches one way or the other.
And he just barely got a piece of that off the end of the bat.
Hit it off the end of the bat, maybe 12 inches fair. I mean, all you can do in a case like that is tip your cap.
Those runs will be charged to the line of Richelson Pena, whose line is closed. He allows 2 earned runs in 2 1/3. RoughRiders facing their largest deficit. Staten is 3 for 3. He's up there now. Singled all 3 times, twice against Tirado, once against Pena.
Baseball is like life sometimes. Sometimes it's just a little bit unfair. Made the pitch you want. The guy hit it off the end of his bat and ends up getting a 2-run double.
Good pitch there to get the swing and a miss. Well, the Riders still have time to get luck back on their side. 6 outs remaining offensively. Ground ball, diving stop. Marte runs at the runner and gets to the lead out. Jenner put away, 5 unassisted. Nice play by the natural shortstop. And Staten, robbed of his 4th base hit, is on with a fielder's choice.
Nice play to dig that out, and another nice play to not be on autopilot and throw to first. Keep in mind that you've got a runner who's basically heading right towards you. Get the lead runner.
So a runner at first with 2 down now. The batter, Johan Acevedo, 0 for 3. Takes the first one low. He hit into a double play his last time up to end the 6th. The Riders have turned a double play tonight, have picked off 2 runners. The Cardinals have turned 2 double plays in this game. Springfield's 3rd different lead of the night. They've led 1-0, 2-1, and now 4-2. Grullon gets called strike.
My expectation with Marte is he'll be back here next year. Well, I guess they could possibly move him up depending on how things go next spring. But just probably keep him here and just see if the hitting progresses.
And a guy who didn't get even a full year here at Double-A. That one's hit foul. He missed a couple of months with a broken hand and a broken finger after he was hit by a pitch in Corpus Christi.
Right, and he's still a fairly young guy, even though he's been in the system for a while.
And Marte just 22, won't turn 23 until December, just after the winter meetings. 1-2 on Acevedo, and Grullon's got a good pickoff move. Doesn't use his best one there.
And he's like Pinto. He's not a guy you're going to put on the 40 this winter because he's in no danger of making anybody else's major league roster, but he is a good guy to have around. My gut feel as far as that goes, the two locks are going to be Ryan Cordell, who unfortunately is injured right now, and the other one is first baseman who was a Rough Rider until very recently, Ronald Guzman. Guzman was signed as the same time and for almost the same amount of money as Nomar Mazara.
Check swing, he went. Drop third strike, and it's chucked down to first by Connor Falefa. The inning is over. So Grullon gives up the big double, but gets out of things after that. The Cardinals take the lead as we head to the bottom of the 8th here at Frisco. Choctaw Lazy River, good look at it, and there's a view of the ballpark tonight. Rough Riders in some wet weather here tonight, but fans have fought through it, sticking around to see a pretty good pitcher's duel. And a resilient Rough Riders club erased 2 different leads, and now they're having to do it again, down 4-2. So we at the bottom of the 8th. Ronnie Shaban is back to work for his second inning, first full frame, in relief of Johnny Walter tonight. 4, 5, and 6 to do the swinging for the Riders here in the 8th inning. Joe Jackson, Alex Acebell, and Luis Marte. Nathan Barnett with you here alongside Scott Lucas of the Newberg Report. Shaban deals to Jackson. Strike one. Joe singled in the second. He is 1 for 3 tonight. He is lined out and grounded out. There's a swing and a foul ball. 0-2. Well, Scott, Rough Riders obviously not the year they hoped for. And the Rangers organization, to some extent, it's been a tough season, but still plenty of good storylines, especially when you talk about the development that's ended up in the big leagues this year with guys like Nomar Mazara, Brett Nicholas, Jared Hoying.
Sure.
Jurickson Profar making it back.
Yeah, these are guys down in Round Rock I was able to see quite a bit. Profar coming back is great. When he first was up in April, honestly, his arm didn't look all that strong. I was watching him at shortstop, and I had a little bit of concern. But his strength picked up over the years to where he was able to make those plays that are critical for a shortstop.
A well-stroked ball, but Drake's got it. 1 away.
3 hard-hit balls for Jackson tonight, but only 1 hit. And that's one of those things where you can't really complain.
What'd you say last inning?
I'm sorry?
What'd you say last inning?
Game of life is unfair.
Yeah.
Game of inches. Yeah.
Here's Bell coming off a 4 for 4 nights, 0 for 3.
But yeah, Mazar is a guy who basically crammed about 3 years of development into about 3 months. Has done, really surpassed the expectations you would think of as a rookie. And it was also really nice to see Brett Nicholas and Jared Hoying finally get their chance to contribute. And not just as September call-ups getting a little look-see, they were actually put into critical situations earlier in the season and showed that they deserve to get another shot down the line.
It's been so long. I'm trying to remember. I feel like Brett Nicholas caught a shutout while he was up there.
Yeah, he did. Both of them, had they not been put on the 40-man roster and called up, they could have become free agents after the season. They've been around that long. I think they've both been around since 2010. But whatever else happens, whether it's with the Rangers or some organization, they show that they can hang in the major leagues.
And those two guys were teammates here in Frisco in 2013. Right. Nicholas led the team in home runs. Hoying wasn't too far behind it before losing a chunk of the season due to a hamstring injury.
Yeah, and Hoying is actually making a late run to have a 3rd consecutive 20-homer, 20-steal season with Round Rock.
Yeah, I was looking at that today as Bell swings and misses here. What is he up to, 18 home runs now? Is that right?
He hit one just last night, so he might, I don't know if it's 18, it might be 16.
16.
But
I think you're right. I think it's 16.
Yeah.
It's 17 steals. I think he's right there.
I think that's right, yes.
Round Rock just getting underway tonight. Bell smacks that ball. Rodriguez going back. It's by him. Bell's got himself a hit, and he's got extra bases. Jogging into second base. The Riders have some life here in the 8th inning, down by a couple. Another double for Bell. For Alex Ace in 18 games now, that's 10 doubles. And he's got 4 doubles in this series.
Yeah, Hoying right now has the extra advantage of they're doing their last Western road trip, so he's playing some games out in Salt Lake City and Las Vegas where the ball really carries.
Las Vegas leading 1-0 tonight over the Express. That lineup pretty stacked right now.
It is. For a AAA team late in the season, it's pretty pleasant.
Former Rough Riders, Drew Robinson, Hanser Alberto, Brett Nicholas, Joey Gallo, Jared Hoying, Preston Beck, Alex Berg. First pitch strike to Marte, who's 2 for 3 tonight.
We'll have to see whether, a lot of those guys you mentioned are going to be called back up. I don't know if they'll call them up exactly on September 1st when you're allowed to expand the roster, but certainly when the season ends on the 5th, because Round Rock is not going to make the playoffs, a lot of those guys are going to be back with the Rangers.
Good take from Luis there, who was retired for the first time tonight in the 7th. Cardinals extending Ronnie Shaban here tonight. He's approaching 30 pitches out of the bullpen.
And Nicholas is a guy who will be up to as a third catcher. Hoying is probably not going to play that much, but he's got some speed. You can use him as a pinch runner or as a defensive replacement if needed.
Hitters count now for Marte. Riders one swing away from having a tie game. Marte in a hitter's count here if he can hit the ball out of the ballpark. Wind blowing out softly to left here at the moment too. Boy, you're looking for it there.
Yeah.
Josh Lucas warming up in the bullpen for Springfield. Action behind Ronnie Shaban.
Power's not going to be a part of Marte's game in the long run, but he actually does have a fair amount of pop. He can run into sometimes.
Bell on at second. Reached by way of a double. Good take, close pitch. First base is open, but it would put the tying run on if they walked him. Josh Lucas, who is warming in the pen, 14 saves for Springfield. They could ask him to get a long save tonight. Payoff pitch, and Marte stays alive. And we'll be back on the air for Fox Sports Southwest on Sunday night. 6 o'clock start for a 6:05 first pitch. It'll be the final game of this homestand and the final game of the series against the Tulsa Drillers. Paul Kruger will join me on the call for that one.
Sorry about that, Nathan. Just one thing I wanted to point out with Marte with a 3-ball count, he walks about as infrequently as anybody in baseball. He's got 3 walks in 55 games with Frisco right now.
And he comes up empty. All 4 swinging. Big strikeout for Shaban, and it looks like that'll be it for him. We're going to ask Lucas to get 4 outs tonight, it appears, with Kiner coming up. 2 outs and a runner at second. The call has not been made yet by Bill Ardello. But he walks straight at Shaban, takes the ball away, and that's it. 4-2 Springfield. Got a pitching change here at Dr. Pepper Ballpark right here on Fox Sports Southwest. New pitcher on for the Springfield Cardinals. Josh Lucas enters out of the bullpen. The team leader in saves with 14. Has a 4-2 record, and you see the numbers on him there. Lots of strikeouts, not too many walks, and a 3.23 ERA, which is one of the lower earned run averages in his bullpen. And it'll be Lucas here to try to put out the fire with the Riders getting a double from Alexis Bell. They have a runner at second with 2 outs here in the bottom of the 8th. Down by a couple of runs, 4-2. Lucas, a 21st round pick out of State College of Florida, Manatee, Sarasota in 2010. Florida native is split this year between Double and Triple A. Lucas relieves Ronnie Shaban, whose line is still open after an inning and a third. He's the third pitcher used, and all three are right-handers. RoughRiders bringing Isaiah Kiner-Falefa to the plate to face him here in the final game of this three-game series. RoughRiders looking for a sweep, but needing some magic here tonight. And here comes Kiner, 0 for 2 tonight. Has hit into a double play and reached on an error. He's also walked and scored a run. Here comes the first from Lucas. Strike one pumped in there. Big tall righty delivers. That one's up high. Lucas listed at 6'5", 215. Facing the RoughRiders for the third time this year. He's unscored upon in 2 outings, going an inning each time, and has surrendered only 1 hit against Frisco. Nasty pitch there. And a called strike on Kiner-Falefa.
Yeah, that's a pitch I don't think you're going to do anything with, even if you do swing at it.
Needs to protect here. Kiner-Falefa, though, a good 2-strike hitter. Gets a piece of this one and pops it up. Voigt going back from first, called off by Staten. And the second baseman squeezes the final out. The RoughRiders are retired here in the 8th. Frisco down by 2 as we head to the 9th here in Frisco at Dr. Pepper Ballpark. Hit the 9th inning here in Frisco. Bull Moose getting his groove on with the crew. Folks here fighting through the rain to stick around and have a good time tonight. They've seen an entertaining ball game with the RoughRiders needing to get out of a hole here. We'll try to keep it a 2-run game as Juan Grullon returns for the 9th inning. Third pitcher used by the RoughRiders. Frisco's erased a couple of deficits already tonight, tying the game at 1 and 2-2. But Springfield with 2 runs in the top of the 8th inning against Richelson. Pena moving ahead. So here we are in the 9th. Grullon got the last couple of outs in the 8th and will face 9-1 and 2 here in the 9th inning. Leadoff batter in the inning, Joey Hawkins. Shortstop 0 for 3 tonight, but has reached on a strikeout. That was a pivotal play in this game. It's a strikeout pass ball that ended up leading to an unearned run. At the time, gave Springfield a 2-1 lead. The RoughRiders able to erase that with a run in the 7th inning. Grullon delivers home, and Hawkins takes another ball. It's 2-0. Bryant and DeYoung to follow. This is the end of the 4th time through the lineup. Makes it 3 balls and no strikes. RoughRiders have 3 more home games coming up on this homestand. Olympic night tomorrow night. Star Wars night on Saturday, and a Kids Sunday Fun Day with post-game fireworks Sunday night. Grullon walks the leadoff batter on 4 pitches. And Hawkins has reached base 3 times as a Double-A player, all of them against the RoughRiders, with 2 walks and 1 single. And Frisco, at least in regulation, will be denied a 1-2-3 inning in this game.
And after this weekend, it's last road trip of the season. Is that correct?
That's right. 4 at San Antonio, 3 at Midland, and then home to take on the Hooks and the Rockhounds to finish out the year. Bryant shows a bunt, but does not offer ball 1. Luis Marte coming over here to talk with Grullon.
Yeah, Frisco got a little bit better draw than the AAA guys. They have 8 on the road and then 4 at home, and then they have 8 more on the road and then 4 at home to close out the season.
Yeah, how in the world did that schedule happen?
I don't know, and part of it they have to go out west. It's, boy, in the minor leagues, it's just a challenge to come up with any kind of a reasonable schedule.
Someone's always going to complain.
Yeah.
Rough Riders are coming off their longest road trip of the year for this homestand. They played 10 straight on the road, went just 2-8, winning 1 game in the Springfield series and 1 in the San Antonio series. They were swept by Tulsa to close out the trip. Drillers come into town tomorrow night and are riding high as Brian pushes this bunt foul. Tulsa's gotten themselves back in the Northern Division race. The Drillers are on their way to a win tonight, 8-2 in the bottom of the 9th. The Dodgers affiliate has won 4 in a row. This would be 5 in a row. And the team they're chasing, the Northwest Arkansas Naturals, were shut out by Corpus Christi tonight 4-0. So if the score holds for the Drillers, they'll be just a game out and in second place in the North. Brian again pulls the bunt back. It's 2-1.
The Texas League schedule is actually a little bit cleaner than it used to be. I want to say it was about 2011. I remember right before the All-Star break, Frisco had a road trip to Corpus, played 4 games, then went straight to Midland, then had to go back to Corpus before the All-Star break. And the guys who were in the All-Star game, they had to go back to Midland.
So they had to come home to Frisco and then to Midland.
Right.
Well, next year that travel will be easy. The All-Star game will be here in Frisco next season. 2-1 on Brian. This time gets the bunt down, but it is foul again. We'll see if they ask him to keep the bunt on with 2 strikes. We saw this from Harrison Bader earlier this year, so it's not out of the realm of possibility for Bill Ardello to ask Brian to try to get this bunt down anyhow.
Yeah, back then the Rangers had a pitcher named Ryan Tutusco, who I would chat with on occasion, and he was in that All-Star game, and by the end of it, I don't think he knew where he was waking up every morning.
Outside corner, called strike 3. Brian sits down. There's 1 gone in the 9th for Paul DeYoung. I remember Ryan. He wrote for you guys with the Newberg Report, didn't he?
That's right, he did. He just wrote some little vignettes about what minor league life was like. He'd gone to Indiana State University, so he was a really nice guy. I think he still lives in the Dallas area. He was actually traded for Christian Guzman along with Tanner Rourke, who ended up being the guy with the better major league career.
Now Paul DeYoung swings and misses strike 1. That's right. Guzman, who came over in that deal, never even made the playoff roster that year for the Rangers, despite the trip to the World Series.
Right. He not only did he not make the playoff roster, he kind of disappeared there down the stretch. That was an unusual situation. Never played in the majors again, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, I think that's right. And Roark has gone on to a pretty good big league career with the Nationals.
Yeah, he has. That was a guy, I saw him plenty in the minor leagues, and nothing against him, but he looked like what you would call a good organizational arm. Could throw 4 pitches for strikes, but there was really nothing that set him out, set him apart. Certainly nothing that would make you think he could succeed that well in the majors, but more power to him.
Swing and a miss. Another strikeout for Grullon. That's 3 now of the 4 outs he's picked up. And needs 1 more out to send this to the bottom of the 9th to give the Rough Riders 1 final chance. Frisco's going to bring 8, 9, and 1 up in their lineup. Garcia, Toyonfell, and Mastriani.
That's a pretty good response after walking the first guy on 4 pitches.
Yeah, 6 of the last 8 for strikes for Grullon.
And as you can see from that replay, Grullon's not a guy who throws very hard. His fastball is coming up around the 87 area, but mostly he's working upper 70s. And it's just hard for guys to pick up.
Luke Voigt hammers this ball into the corner, and that is a fair ball. Racing to third goes Hawkins. He is getting waved around. Here comes the relay. It's cut off. And a throwback at second off the foot of Voigt. And it trickles towards the outfield. It's an RBI double for Luke Voigt. He's got his 3rd run batted in of the night. And the league's leading batter puts the Cardinals ahead by a 5-2 score.
Well, perhaps I spoke a little too hastily. That one kind of hung out over the plate just a little more than he wanted. Voigt was ready for it.
Voigt an RBI in the 1st, 5th, and now the 9th. Hawkins racing around the bag, scores all the way from first on that play. Going on contact with 2 outs. So now it's Jonathan Rodriguez, the cleanup batter. 1 for 3, scored a run, drawn a walk. Back to the swing and miss stuff for Grullon. So the Riders will need at least 3 tonight at the bottom of the 9th. Frisco scored at least 4 runs in both of the games so far in this series. And the Riders have scored at least 3 runs in each of the last 4 ball games. Lefty ready with the 0-2. Line drive, that's another base hit. Voigt's coming around to score, and it is 6-2 Cardinals. Back-to-back knocks from Voigt and Rodriguez, who collects his 2nd hit of the day.
That pitch looked like it was a little bit lower in the zone than the one Voigt hit, but it was nevertheless one that Rodriguez was ready for.
So they'll move the line, and Blake Drake comes back up. Drake hitless on the night, 0 for 3. Laid down a sacrifice bunt his last time up. Ball 1 outside. Drake struck out in the 1st and in the 4th, flew out in the 5th. Riders play at 7 o'clock tomorrow night, 7:05. Tulsa Drillers will send Isaac Anderson to the mound, and the Riders have Scott Carroll going on the bump, who was traded from the White Sox for cash considerations in early July. Have you seen the promotional video of Scott Carroll?
I have. I was concerned about whether I would be allowed to bring that up. It's fantastic. He will endorse your product.
You can find that one on YouTube, and he displays the doodle hats that he and his friend developed. I want to say he said his best friend's brother-in-law came up with the concept, and he became the spokesperson for it.
Okay.
You can still buy them. They're dry erase hats.
Okay.
Called doodle hats. You're welcome, Scott, for the plug here on TV. Runners on the move. The 2-2 is fouled away. I want to say either $15 or $20, and the doodle hat can be yours.
Okay.
Doodlehats.com.
Yeah, I've never met Carroll, but seeing what he's done on YouTube, he seems like a nice guy with a good sense of humor.
He is, and working on his stuff, trying to be some good depth for the Rangers should they need him. Guy that's seen big league time over the last 3 years. Ground ball foul. And Drake will live to see another pitch. Grullon tries to send this game to the bottom of the 9th inning here. 2 runs across in this frame. Springfield has extended their lead with runs in the 8th and the 9th. Breaking up a 2-2 tie with 2 runs in the 8th inning and extending their lead here in the 9th inning. This is the largest lead they've had of the game.
Out in High Desert held on to win the first game of tonight's doubleheader 12-6 over Lancaster.
That's like a 1-run game out there.
Yeah, no lead is safe. Catcher Jose Trevino hit his 8th homer.
That's the guy you'd expect to see up here at the start of the year next year, right? The way he's played this season?
Yes, I don't think he'll be here. I don't think there's any question. You're going to have a lot of new faces.
Still 2-2 on Blake Drake. Got him. 3 strikeouts in the inning for Grullon, but he also allows a walk and 2 base hits. Gives up 2 runs, and we go to the bottom of the 9th with the Riders needing at least 4 runs here on Fox Sports. Last chance for the RoughRiders. Folks still having fun at the yard tonight, but the home team down by 4 runs, 6-2. Josh Lucas going for a 4-out save. Will face Garcia, Triunfel, and Mastriani here in the 9th inning. The RoughRiders have never led this game, but they've tied it twice, and one last chance to do it here in the 9th inning. Nathan Barnett with Scott Lucas, the Newberg Report, with you here at Dr. Pepper Ballpark tonight. Thanks for making us part of your Thursday evening. No Rangers game tonight, so get a chance to watch some of the future Rangers here in action. Here's Eddie Garcia, 0 for 3. Lucas working exclusively out of the stretch. Got the final out of the 8th. And the first pitch is fouled away.
Rangers heading out to Tampa Bay for a quick 3. Then they get another day off, and then they go to Cincinnati.
Another foul ball. Boy, what a series that was against Oakland.
That was fun.
2 improbable wins, especially the game in which they trailed in the, what was it, the 10th inning?
Right. That I went back and looked, and
0-2 slammed to center. But playable. Drake's got it. 1 away. The Riders have 2 outs left.
the last time I could find an intentional ball in that situation where you're deliberately loading the bases and there's less than 2 outs and you've got a non-pitcher coming up, 20 years ago. And I'm not even sure if that was totally intentional. It might have been a situation where they tried to pitch to him for a couple balls and it didn't work, and then they just gave up. But not the best strategy, in my opinion.
Sure backfired. Here's Troy Fell. Cruz got an RBI double tonight, 1 for 2. He's also been hit by a pitch. Even though it's a 4-run game, Lucas would qualify for the save in this one because he entered the game in what at the time was a 2-run game. Save for Lucas would be his 15th. Line drive, base hit for Triunfel again. Second hit of the ball game for Alberto Triunfel. He joins Luis Marte with 2 hits in this game, and the RoughRiders are not done yet. Another pull side hit for the shortstop.
Yeah, nothing fancy on that one. Just kind of reached out and punched it over the infield.
Shaban, Pena, Lucas. Top of the lineup, 5th time through, Mastroianni. Hitless in the game. Called strike there.
I don't mean to put you on the spot, but does Frisco, what's their biggest comeback this season? I kind of feel like they've had maybe not 4 runs, but
I think this would be the largest comeback in the 9th, although they have come back from down 3 in the 9th. This ball's fouled away. The largest deficit the Riders have overcome in a game in total is 4, and they've done it 4 times. Twice against Corpus Christi. 3 times against Corpus Christi and once against Arkansas. Their largest comeback against Springfield is just 2 runs. This is one of the better comeback teams in the league. But now they are 1 out away as Mastroianni strikes out. Riders down to their final out. Edward Pinto coming up. Oh, nasty break on that one from Lucas. Ball just died when it got there. So the hopes are left into the bat of Edward Pinto. The Riders down by 4 here. Pinto with an RBI single back in the 3rd. He has reached twice on a walk as well. 3 of 4 times he's been up. He's been on base. First pitch strike from Lucas. If Lucas can hang on for the save, he would tie Aaron West, who's no longer in the league with the most saves in the Texas League. So it stands to reason he has a good shot to have the most at year's end. Pitches high, 1-1.
And we talked about the rarity of intentional walks in AA, or really the minors in general. That was the first one Pinto's ever had in the previous, his previous at bat.
Takes another strike, and the Riders are down to their final strike. That loaded the bases for the Riders in the 7th. They were not able to cash in. One of the bigger opportunities wasted for the RoughRiders tonight, who've left on 8 and have gone 2 for 9 with runners in scoring position. Lucas needs 1 more strike as the Riders try to extend this game. Here's the pitch, and he got him. Riders fall in this one tonight as the Cardinals salvage a game from the RoughRiders in this series. Frisco wins the first two, but the Cardinals win the final game of the season series and win it tonight 6-2. RoughRiders baseball on Fox Sports Southwest has been brought to you by Train. It's hard to stop a train. By the Heart Hospital, Baylor Plano. And by J.C. Penney. RoughRiders drop tonight 6-2. The final score in this one. Ariel Jurado getting the start for the RoughRiders. And Jurado pitched well for Frisco, but they dropped the series finale in this one. Here's a look at Jurado's work tonight. The young 20-year-old pitched well, although not quite as we expected tonight, Scott.
No, he was a little bit more fly prone than we were expected, but in terms of what you're seeing on your screen now with the strikeouts, you're seeing a lot of those heavy fastballs. He can miss a fair number of pitches with them. And we're also, once again, talking about a guy who's only 20 years old. They've moved him up pretty quickly this year.
And the Riders in a 2-2 tie gave up this double to Jesse Jenner with the infield, and that was the back-breaking hit that put the Cardinals ahead 4-2, and they never surrendered that lead, their third of the night, and went on to win the final 6-2. Back here in Frisco, the RoughRiders dropped the series finale to the Springfield Cardinals 6-2. The 6 runs for Springfield on 12 base hits, 2 errors. The RoughRiders 2 runs, 7 hits, and no errors. Ronnie Shaban out of the bullpen, the winning pitcher, to improve to 8-3. Richardson Pena suffered the loss, gave up 2 runs and drops to 3-2. Josh Lucas is tied for the league lead in saves now. He picks up his 15th in 17 tries. The game took 2 hours and 54 minutes and a crowd of 5,302 paid to see it here tonight. Nathan Barnett, Scott Lucas back with you here in Frisco. And Scott, the RoughRiders don't win tonight, but they did win the series, and you're seeing some bright spots that maybe we didn't expect to see down the stretch run of the RoughRiders season, especially in a guy like Edward Pinto, who reached 3 more times tonight.
Sure. We talked about him in the promo. Was hitting 400 coming in and had another good night. Was hitting well enough that the other team decided to give him the first intentional walk of his career. And also Jurado, just a guy who basically pitched as advertised, showed why he belongs in the Texas League at such a young age.
No decision tonight for Jurado. He did pick up 6 strikeouts in his 5th RoughRiders start. Next television broadcast is going to come up on August 21st. That is Sunday, 6 o'clock against the Tulsa Drillers. The RoughRiders will wrap up their homestand in series against Tulsa. Again, a 6 o'clock start. And the RoughRiders will hope for a series win against the team that swept them on the road. Thanks for everybody for tuning in tonight. That's going to do it for us here tonight in Frisco. This telecast is copyright 2016 Frisco RoughRiders Baseball. Good night.